Chapter 1269. However, just as Li Jianyue climbed on top of him, the door to the room was opened. The two little guys on the bed were so scared that they shivered. Li Mosen quickly turned his body and Li Jianyue fell down. Then both of them turned their heads at the same time. Li Jianxian walked in with a book in his hand. When he saw their big reaction, he felt a little strange and asked, "What are you doing?" "Brother." Li Jianyue got up and looked at Li Jianxian. Her face was full of accusation as she said, "Why didn't you knock on the door when you came in? That's so rude." Li Jianxian laughed. "This is my room too. I'm entering my own room. Why do I have to knock on the door?" Li Jianyue's pink face suddenly turned red. She said, "If there is someone inside, you should knock on the door. Don't you have to knock on the door when you enter Mom and Dad's room? How can that be compared? Mom and Dad are husband and wife. You are brother and sister." Li Jianyue's heart was stifled. She felt even more uncomfortable when her brother said that. However, she just felt that what her brother said was wrong. It was wrong. However, she couldn't tell what was wrong. It was as if there was something that had to be said, but she didn't know what to say. This feeling was too uncomfortable. The little fellow snorted, turned her head and shouted, "I don't care about Big Brother anymore. Big Brother is always right." Li Jianxian walked in with the book in his arms. He took off his cotton slippers and climbed onto the bed. He said, "That's because what I say makes sense. You can't refute it, so you feel that what I say is right." When Li Jianyue heard this, she was even more unhappy. "But what were you doing just now? Why did you look like that?" "We were playing a game of chasing you off the bed." When Li Jianyue heard this, she immediately smiled and shared it. She said, "Brother doesn't play with me every time, so Brother Mosen and I created this game. It's so fun." "It's not fun." Li Mosen immediately retorted. "It's not fun at all." Li Jianyue put her hands on her hips and puffed out her chest. She shouted, "It's fun." Li Jianxian looked at the two of them yelling at each other. He pursed his lips in disdain and said, "Mosen, don't play with her if you don't think it's fun in the future. You'll spoil Ursa too much. Girls are meant to be spoiled. If you don't spoil me, it means you don't love me." Li Jianyue used Li Xiqing's method and said, "I'll tell Dad and let him criticize you." "Ursa, you are so bad." Li Mosen wrinkled his nose and said, "I won't play this with you in the future. When I'm in a good mood, I'll play with you again." "Don't do that." Li Jianyue frowned and pouted her pink lips. "Brother Mosen is the best," she said in an ingratiating tone. Li Mosen didn't listen to her. He turned his head and said, "When I'm in a good mood." "Are you in a bad mood now?" Li Jianyue blinked her eyes, looking a little aggrieved. "Oh no, Ursu is bullying me." "I'm not. Brother Mosen is the best. I can't bear to bully Brother Mosen." The little girl raised 3 fingers and made a gesture of 3. "I swear." Li Jianxian sweated and reminded her, "Ursu, you swore wrongly." Chapter 1270. "But, if the 3 in the middle are too difficult." Li Jianyue pouted and said, "Although I swore wrongly, my heart is true. I can't bear to bully Brother Mosen." As she said that, she leaned over and said, "Brother Mosen, alabayu." Li Jianxian listened, looked up and corrected, "It's I love you." Li Mosen's face turned red and he was a little embarrassed. Li Jianyue smiled as if she didn't notice the impact of her words on others. Her little face was full of joy as she said, "Anyway, that's what I mean. It's good that you understand." Then she looked at Li Jianxian and said, "Brother, I love alabayu too." These words shouldn't have been a big deal. But when it fell into Li Mosen's ears, it was a little unpleasant. The same thing Ursa not only gave it to him but also to Desu. But Desu was her biological brother, wasn't he? As for him, he was just an adopted child. Li Jianxian didn't notice Li Mosen's strangeness. When he heard this, he laughed and said, "Ursu, that's called I love you too." "Oh, short come bayu pui." Li Jianxian was powerless. He put down the book in his hand and said, "Come read after me." The siblings began to struggle with the pronunciation while Li Mosen sat on the side, took the famous book that Li Jianxian brought and read it. There was pinyin on it and it didn't look difficult. The siblings stayed inside for the whole afternoon. When Su Qianxi came in, Li Jianxian was patiently teaching Li Jianyue words. Compared to Li Jianxian's patience, Li Jianyue's small body was crooked, and it was obvious that she lacked interest. She stared at the letters written by her brother in front of her and said, "Brother, your handwriting is so beautiful. Well, write one for me to see." Li Jianyue picked up the pen, crooked on the surface of the paper, drew a circle and then drew a little more at the back. Wrong, write it like this." Li Jianxian grabbed her hand, stroke by stroke. Why are you so stupid? I really suspect that mom got the wrong baby when she was giving birth. When Li Jianyue heard this, she was unhappy. She pouted and said, "It won't happen. Daddy said that I look like mommy and I are both beautiful and cute. I will definitely look like mommy in the future." "I won't." "Why?" "Because you're not twins." When Li Jianyue heard that, she turned to look at her twin brother. She blinked and said, "Then will I look like my brother in the future?" "Of course not." Li Jianxian turned her head back and said, "Don't think too much. You are a woman and I am a man. How can we look the same?" "But my brother and I are twins. Did you say that twins will look very similar?" Li Jianyue was unwilling to give up. She was unwilling to write. Twins are different from each other. Some look alike while others don't. "Oh." Li Jianyue didn't seem to understand. "Then why don't we look alike?" This question directly made Li Jianxian stumped. Xiao Xiao frowned and thought about it. After a long time she said, "Because we don't look alike." "But why?" "Because so." Chapter 1271. Li Jianxian couldn't answer. He blushed and looked a little impatient as he shouted, "Hey, are you going to write or not?" Li Jianrui pouted and said, "I don't want to write. It's not fun at all." "But the little princess must know how to write." "A little princess who can't write will be laughed at," Li Mosen interrupted. Li Jianrui pouted even higher and said, "Why is there such an invention as words in the world? It's so annoying." Su Qinxi laughed and said, "Well, I won't write any more. Let's go eat with uncle and auntie." Hearing that, Li Jianrui immediately stood up, threw away the pen in her hand and shouted, "Mom, I want to go." "Let's go together. Quickly put on your shoes." Su Qinxi patted her little butt and pushed her. Li Jianrui immediately smiled and put on her slippers. She ran to the shoe cabinet outside and took out her black bright leather princess shoes. Sitting on a small stool next to the shoe cabinet, the little girl tore the glued shoelaces and stuffed them on her feet. Li Jianxian and Li Mosen followed behind. The three little guys looked about the same size, but their appearances, temperaments and personalities were all different. Yu Lili and O Ming sat on the sofa and looked at their children with a smile. Li Jianxian was wearing a pair of small air shoes. He untied the shoelaces and tied them neatly before standing up. "Brother!" Li Jianrui suddenly shouted. It sounded like she was about to cry. She shouted, "The shoes went in and I can't take them out." Li Jianxian turned his head and asked, "Where did they go?" The shoes were stepped on by the little girl's heel. Li Jianxian looked helpless and said in disgust, "Stupid." Li Jianrui didn't dare to speak and looked at her brother with a pair of big round eyes. Li Jianxian squatted down and took off her little shoes helplessly. He said, "You have to do this like this." Li Jianrui responded, but she didn't listen very carefully. Instead, she looked in the direction of Li Mosen. The little fellows put on their shoes and stood up together, shouting, "Daddy, Mommy, we are ready." Looking at the interaction of the children and the lively atmosphere, O Ming quietly lowered his head and whispered into Yu Lili's ear, "It seems that it is good to have more children. You want 3 too?" Yu Lili stretched out her finger and pushed his face away. "Do you think I'm a sow? Sows aren't bad either. 3 at a time." O Ming touched her finger and chuckled. "At that time we can let the children play with their children." Second brother's children were very smart. All 3 of them were very clever. O Ming knew what was going on and whispered, "That girl must have been spoiled by Lao Air." As if to confirm his words, Li Xiqing walked up, picked up his daughter and asked, "Are you hungry?" Ursa shook her head, "I'm not hungry." Li Xiqing seemed very happy. He pinched her little face and said, "Let's go. Daddy will take you to eat." Yu Lili also laughed and said, "Every time I come over I see him coaxing or holding his daughter and the 2 men ignore him. Will such favoritism leave a psychological shadow on the children?" Chapter 1272. Go find a sow to give birth to. Yu Lili pushed him, but she couldn't suppress the smile on her face. O Ming didn't mind. He pulled her along and followed the family of 3. They followed quietly and quickly went out. Su Qinxi had a big car and they were all neighbors. After getting in the car together they drove to the hot pot restaurant. The children were very lively, especially Li Jianyue. She sang and jumped along the way and chatted with Yu Lili. At this moment she sat on Yu Lili's lap and asked in a childish voice, "Auntie, can I learn painting from you in the future? I also like painting, but my brother always says that my painting is so ugly. I am so angry." Yu Lili smiled and said, "Of course I am your neighbor now. If you want to play with me you can come over at any time." "Really? Where do you live, Auntie?" After dinner, I will take you to have a look. Wow. Li Jianyue looked very happy and said, then hurry up, auntie. The car sped up and soon they arrived at the place to eat. The children were playing together and several adults were sitting at the coffee table and talking. Li Jianyue held the big pillow in the box in her hand and ran toward Li Mosen shouting, Brother Mosen, my button is off. Help me button it. Li Mosen was sitting in a chair playing a game and Li Jianxian was playing with his phone. When he heard Li Jianyue's voice he shouted, No Ursu, don't come over. We are playing a game. If we lose it will be your fault. When Li Jianyue heard this she was a little unhappy. She pouted and said, What's so fun about playing a game? It's not fun at all. Li Jianxian ignored Li Jianyue and concentrated on playing the game. But Li Mosen quickly put down the phone in his hand, waved to Li Jianyue and said, Come here. Li Jianyue held the big pillow and immediately smiled. She jumped over with her short legs and shouted, Brother Mosen is the best. Li Jianxian shouted and said, No Mosen, you are actually hanging up. Li Mosen ignored Li Jianxian's howl and focused on buttoning Li Jianyue's back. Then the sound of Li Mosen's game character being killed came out, followed by Li Jianxian being killed. By the time Li Mosen had finished buttoning Li Jianyue's shirt, the news of everyone's death came. Then they failed. Li Mosen, you traitor, you actually hung up and lost. Li Jianxian threw the phone away and shouted angrily. Li Jianyue blinked her eyes. She hugged the big pillow and looked at her brother. She said, It's okay to lose. Just win it back. Why are you so angry? Right, Brother Mosen? Hearing that, Li Mosen nodded and said, Yes, it's good to win it back. When Li Jianxian heard them echoing each other, he was so angry that he didn't want to pay attention to them. He turned around and picked up his phone to continue playing. Soon the hot pot was ready. Su Qianxi rushed the children to the bathroom to wash their hands and sat down, but it was obvious that Li Jianxian was unhappy. His little face was stiff, and he sat in the chair without saying a word. That unhappy look was exactly the same as Li Xiqing. Chapter 1273. When Su Qianxi saw this she leaned over and asked, What's wrong? Nothing. Li Jianxian picked up a piece of cold dish and put it into his mouth, but the force was a little forceful and he looked very angry. When Li Xiqing saw this he raised his eyebrows slightly and asked, Desu, are you unhappy? No. Li Jianxian still said the same thing. He reached out his chopsticks and picked up another piece of food to eat. Why are you unhappy? Li Jianxian replied, I'm not unhappy. Did Ursa make you angry again? Li Xiqing asked as he heated the beef for his wife. Li Jianyue was suddenly called. She looked up, blinked and said, Dad, I didn't. It was brother who lost the game with Brother Mosen. Li Xiqing looked at Li Jianxian. Is that so? Li Jianxian was silent for a moment before he said sullenly, Mosen is always like this. He stops playing when Ursa calls him. He always causes me to lose. I'm sorry, Desu. Li Mosen sat next to Li Jianxian and said, Ursa didn't button her shirt properly just now, so I did it for her. But you let go at the critical moment. It's so hateful. Li Jianxian gritted his teeth, but immediately continued to eat and did not speak. Everyone finally understood what was going on. Li Jianyue pouted and apologized, Brother, don't be angry. It's Ursa's fault. I won't call you guys when you're playing games in the future. When Li Xiqing heard this he frowned and said, A man should be magnanimous. It's natural to protect your sister. It's natural to help her. Why are you angry? When Su Qianxi heard this she reached out and pulled on Li Xiqing's sleeve and said, Don't teach the children. Li Xiqing held Su Qianxi's hand and said, The children are still young. There are some things that they should know. For a man the most important thing should be his family. Whether it is his mother or his sister they should be protected. And you boys, no matter your age, should be strong and self-respecting. You shouldn't vent your anger on your family, and you shouldn't be angry with your sister. Do you understand? Yu Lily felt strange when she heard that. She glanced at Oming and whispered, Your second brother is too biased. Oming smiled faintly. He turned his head and whispered, A little, but that's how boys should be taught. Yu Lily, birds of a feather flock together. When Li Jianxian, who was being lectured, heard his father's words, his bright red lips pursed even tighter. Sullenly he said, I didn't vent. Indeed he did not vent. If Su Qianxi and Li Xiqing had not asked, he probably would not have said anything. Su Qianxi felt a bit distressed. She patted Li Xiqing and said, Shut up. You're so annoying. As she spoke, she sat down beside Li Jianxian and said, Don't listen to your father. If you are unhappy in the future, just say it and tell Mom. When Li Xiqing saw his wife's protective attitude, He didn't say anything else. She boiled a few more pieces of beef and put them in the bowl in front of Li Jianxian. She said, "You are still young, so I'll let it go this time. In the future you have to learn to control your emotions. You have to be clear about what is important and what is not. If any small thing can affect your emotions, then you are a failure as a person." Chapter 1274. 5 years old, not young anymore. When I was 5, I was already in primary school. It is not good for these children to stay at home. Let Qingyu arrange for them to go to school, Li Xiqing said, looking at them. Su Qinxi was a little reluctant and said, "It's good for them to study at home. There's a limit to what my family can give me. I need to get in touch with other friends." After a pause he continued, "If you don't go out and see, how will you know how good you are?" Su Qinxi was overjoyed by his words. Su Qinxi curled her lips, thought about it, and asked Li Jianxian, "After a few days I will send you to school, okay?" "Whatever." Li Jianxian's expression had eased a lot, but when he said this his eyes could not help but drift to Li Xiqing. His dark eyes were filled with unspeakable respect. Seeing this, Ming knew that the child had listened to what his second brother had just said. So smart. Like father, like son, just like Li Xiqing. "If I go to school, will there be a lot of people?" Li Jianyue seemed a little excited. "Can I be in the same class as Brother Mosen?" "Sure." Li Xiqing curled his lips and glanced at his excited daughter. "If you pass the exam." Li Jianyue was even happier and cheered, "I will definitely get in." "When you go back, you have to study hard, Li Jianxian," Li Xiqing called out. Li Jianxian straightened his back and looked at Li Xiqing. "Dad. Go back and help your sister with her revision, Li Mosen." Li Mosen also looked over. He was a little happy and shouted, "Here. You're 6 years old. I'll hire a tutor for you so you can go straight to elementary school." "Okay, Dad." Li Mosen was overjoyed. "What about Daesu and Ursu? Will you be in the same class with me?" "Daesu will be in the same class as you." As for Ursu, Li Jianyue was a little unconvinced and shouted, "I can get in. Dad, don't look down on me." Li Xiqing chuckled, pinched her little face with his big hand and said, "Hurry up and eat." The whole family sat together, happy and harmonious. After they finished eating, Yu Lily took them to tour the new house that she and Ming were living in. It was also Yu Lily's first time living in this house. Just when she thought she had explored all the places, she shouted, "Auntie, there's a door up there." "What's it for?" "The door above?" When Yu Lily heard that, she looked up. It was a small place on the side of the stairs. If one did not look carefully, one would not notice that there was a small door here. The small door was only big enough for an adult to enter. It was very small. Ming stepped forward and said, "That's a holographic room. Your Auntie Lily has never been in it before. Let's go. Uncle will take you in." Li Jianyue didn't understand what holographic meant, but when she heard that they were going in, she immediately nodded. Ming turned around and took out a remote control from somewhere. He pressed the button and the small door quickly opened. It was pitch black inside. Ming pressed the remote control again, and a large area of light immediately lit up inside. Blue murmuring water. "Come, let's go in and take a look." Chapter 1275. Yu Lily had never been here before, so naturally she did not know what it was like inside. As soon as she came in, she was shocked by the scene in front of her. The surroundings were navy blue, and there was water everywhere. Large and small sea fish were swimming around, looking lazy and leisurely. There was also cool air around him, as if there was really water coming from all directions. Gurgle, gurgle. The sound of water came from all directions, and she felt a sense of crisis. The little girl stood on the flat and hard ground, but this inexplicable feeling of being suspended in the air was a little frightening. Li Jianrui subconsciously grabbed Li Xiqing's big hand and leaned over with some fear. However, a pair of big eyes still stared curiously at the bottom. The fish coming and going and the constantly gurgling water all made Li Jianrui feel very excited and fun. At the bottom, there were beautiful corals and seaweed that swayed endlessly. The waves swayed layer by layer, looking beautiful. Beautiful tropical fish, colorful, gently swayed their tails, and their mouths blew bubbles. And Li Jianxian and Li Mosen, looking at the deep-sea fish coming and going, seemed to appear in front of them. They reached out and wanted to touch them but quickly passed through their bodies. Su Qinxi also felt a little emotional, feeling that it was a little fun. Ming saw the appearance of a few children, and then looked at his own woman. At this moment Yu Lily was staring at a shell below. The shell swam and opened and closed, looking a little funny. Yu Lily looked at it with a smile and shouted, "Look at this." Li Jianrui giggled, took Li Xiqing's hand and shouted, Dad, can I come often to play in the future? You have to ask your Uncle O Ming. When Li Jianrui heard that, she turned to look at O Ming, blinked her big eyes and asked, Uncle O Ming, can I? Of course you are welcome at any time. O Ming rubbed Li Jianrui's little head. You can ask your brothers to bring you over. Okay. Li Jianrui was very happy. Thank you, Uncle. Well, let's go back. Li Xiqing pulled Su Qianxi and said, they just got married today. Hearing this, Su Qianxi understood. Her cheeks were slightly red, and her elbow gently moved Li Xiqing. Then he brought the children with him and walked out. The children were a little reluctant to leave, especially Li Jianrui. She had a pair of big eyes and looked around. She seemed to be very interested. However, no matter how reluctant he was still pulled away by Su Qianxi. Leaving so soon? Stay a little longer, Yu Lily said. No, it's time for the kids to go home and take a shower. See you. She waved her hand. When Yu Lily heard that, she nodded her head and said, all right, I'll see you off. Now you guys stay here. It's only a few minutes walk. It's not far. Su Qianxi pushed her back and patted her hand. Happy wedding. His words made Yu Lily's heart feel as if it was boiling water, and it felt warm. Thank you, Qianqian. She chuckled and waved her hand. Let's go. After sending off the family, Yu Lily closed the door. When she turned around, she saw O Ming walking toward her with something in his hand. Chapter 1276. Happiness, from the deepest part of her heart, involuntarily climbed to her limbs and seeped into every meridian. Yu Lily smiled, gently licked her slightly dry lower lip and walked toward O Ming. O Ming stood in place waiting for her to come over. He opened his hands and said, do you remember? When did we meet? 7 years ago? What about the date? Yu Lily thought about it, shook her head and asked, do you remember? O Ming thought about it and said, I don't know. I thought you would remember. When Yu Lily heard that, she turned her head and glared at him. You don't even remember and you're asking me? Anyway, it's not today. Here, let's go. Where are we going? The holographic room. O Ming took Yu Lily's hand and walked slowly. He picked up the remote control in his hand and quickly pressed it twice. Let's go play on the mountain. Where did the mountain come from? How can we change the scenery? Yu Lily was a little surprised. Seeing his smiling expression, her heart melted in an instant. Of course there is. Otherwise we'll play in the sea forever. Why didn't you show it to the children just now? They loved it. Of course, I had to let my wife experience it first. I originally wanted to give you a surprise at night, but who knew that second brother's daughter's eyes were so sharp? She saw it so quickly. O Ming opened the door and pulled her in. As soon as they entered the door, they saw a very bright light. They were surrounded by the scenery of the mountains during the day, and even the air was very fresh. Yu Lily was very surprised. She stepped in and stepped on a stone. O Ming was behind, watching her back, and pressed the remote control with a bad idea. The stone under her feet suddenly shook, and Yu Lily lost her balance and almost fell down. With a yelp, Yu Lily instinctively reached out to grab O Ming. O Ming reached out to support her and pulled her firmly into his arms. Looking at the fair and delicate face in front of him, his lips curled up, and his bright peach eyes were full of a smile. He whispered in her ear, is it fun? Yu Lily was shocked. She didn't expect it to have such a function. Annoyed, he reached out to pat O Ming and said, why didn't you say anything? You scared me to death. How could I scare you if I told you? O Ming smiled. Look, there's someone playing over there. Yu Lily looked in the direction of his finger and saw a couple hugging and kissing not far away. The man's back looked somewhat familiar. He was tall and sturdy, nearly 1.9 meters tall. He was wearing loose, burgundy sportswear, which was his usual style. In front of the man, a petite and slender woman was pressed against a rock. Her hands were gently placed on his waist, and her face was raised to receive the man's kiss. When Yu Lily saw that, she felt a little surprised. At the same time, she felt a strong sense of shame. This woman's face was exactly the same as hers. And that man. Wasn't that O Ming? What's going on? When did I ever shoot such a film? Yu Lily was embarrassed and annoyed. Pervert. Chapter 1277. Another wedding gift? Yu Lily turned to look at him. Her cheeks were slightly red, but her embarrassment had calmed down a little. She asked, why are there so many wedding gifts? Well, O Ming thought about it and said softly, just think of it as compensation for being late to the wedding. Wedding? Yes, wedding. O Ming pushed the hair on her forehead to the back of her head. Second brother's wedding is flying to Ireland. I heard that the next wedding anniversary is going to Venice. Tiske, this guy is too wild. His words were full of envy, jealousy, and hate. Oming's face was full of envy. But, in the future I will also be a man with a wife. Do you have any particular place you want to go? I want to go. Lily's voice was dragged out and her lips curled up. I haven't thought of it yet. Let's talk about it when the time comes. There might not even be a wedding. Before Oming brought it up, Lily had never thought about it at all. Weddings were a little too extravagant for her. Okay. Oming looked at her and asked her to turn her face away. Look. Oming's doppelganger and Lily were holding hands, each carrying a backpack as they climbed up the mountain. Lily looked like she was having a hard time. Oming, on the other hand, was much more relaxed. He looked down from above and reached out to Lily. The two of them slowly climbed the mountain together. Climbing a mountain? Lily was a little excited. We haven't climbed a mountain before. It looks really good. When we're done with our business we can go and do whatever we want. Oming pulled Lily toward them. Lily found that as they walked, the view in front of them was getting closer and closer. It was like climbing a mountain. The difference was that Lily was in front of a mountain rock, but her feet were still as flat as before. Oming, is it a good idea for us to be doing this? Lily was still feeling uneasy. If we hide it from your mother like this, what if she finds out? At most I'll get beaten up by my father. Oming looked indifferent. Anyway, it's not like I haven't been beaten before. Isn't your mother's health not very good? It's okay. Thanks to second brother, I've already solved Shinluo, Anne's problem. She won't be angry. Don't worry so much. Just wait for my good news. Well? Lily's heart was a little perturbed. Looking at them, who were climbing the mountain side by side not far ahead, the longing and yearning in her heart became deeper and deeper. After the shower, Lily was drying Oming's hair when her phone rang. The ringtone belonged to Oming. Oming reached out and took it. At a glance he saw the big word on it. Mom. Take it. Lily turned off the hairdryer and reached out to touch his hair. Oming picked up the phone. Mom? Why aren't you back yet? Lil? Oh, I've been waiting for you for a long time. You should know your limits when playing outside. Why aren't you back yet? I won't go back tonight. I'll sleep outside. Upon hearing this, Qiao Ziqing immediately guessed it and asked, You've gotten back together with that woman, right? Yeah. Oming didn't avoid the topic. He narrowed his eyes and leaned back slightly. I've been with her for a long time. I went to Fujian to look for her. Mom, don't you know that? Chapter 1278. Mom, what kind of drug did my father feed you back then? Do you want to marry him that badly? Qiao Ziqing immediately retorted, How can that be the same? Your father and I are of the same social status. What kind of family does that woman come from? Lily paused in the middle of helping Oming fix his hair. Oming reached out and removed the hand from his head. He said into the phone, Mom, what does it mean to be of the same social status? Is it like Shin Manting's family? Qiao Ziqing laughed coldly. At the very least, Shin Manting's family makes it impossible for me to find any other reason for her to marry you other than liking you. Is that so? But Shin Manting is not a biological daughter of the Shin family. You know that, don't you? Regardless of whether she is biological or not, the Shin family treats her like a daughter. That means she is a daughter of the Shin family. But now that she is like this, of course, I can't let you marry her. What if Lily's family is the same as the Shin family? Oming's trap, one by one, slowly and patiently lured Qiao Ziqing into it. Lily had discovered it, but Qiao Ziqing had no idea. Qiao Ziqing was amused and asked, Isn't she an orphan? Yes, but Grandma Shin likes Lily very much. She has already accepted her as her granddaughter. In a few days, I will go with her to the capital to meet old Mrs. Shen and hold the induction ceremony. Qiao Ziqing was stunned and asked, What do you mean? An adopted grandchild. Lily will soon become the adopted daughter of Shin Manting's father and Mr. Shin Longyue. Oming enunciated each and every word clearly and firmly. Qiao Ziqing suddenly thought of old Mrs. Shen bringing Lily to the house a few days ago. Could it be that it started from that time? Indeed, when old Mrs. Shen spoke, she was defending Lily between the lines. Oming's words were highly credible. An adopted daughter is not a biological daughter after all. The Shen family treats her like a daughter, so she is a daughter of the Shen family. Didn't you just say that? Qiao Ziqing was stumped by her own words and was momentarily speechless. Just as she was about to say something, she heard Oming say, Mom, it's late. I'm going to rest. I'll bring her back tomorrow and let her serve you tea. Serve tea? When Xiao Ziqing heard these two words, she vaguely guessed something. Wait a moment. But before he could say the next two words, the call was immediately hung up. Serve tea? Xiao Ziqing had a bad feeling about this. She picked up her phone and called her son, but he wouldn't pick up. Offering tea? What did that mean? Wasn't bringing a woman home to serve tea something that only a new wife would do? Could it be that they were married? After figuring it out, Xiao Ziqing felt a surge of air in her chest. She was so furious that she shouted, "Old O!" Ming hung up and switched the phone to silent mode. He tossed it aside and pressed Yu Lily onto the bed. He placed his head on her neck and said, "Honey, go to sleep." Yu Lily's neck was tickled. She chuckled and said, "Wait a moment. My hair isn't dry yet." "Yeah, I'll help you dry it. Sit down." Chapter 1279. Well, let's go back. Ming was in a good mood. He looked at Yu Lily, lifted her hair, and picked up the towel next to him to wipe it. An ugly daughter-in-law has to see her parents-in-law. You're ugly. Yu Lily pointed at him. Well, I'm ugly. Ming threw the towel away with one hand and then took the hairdryer to help her dry her hair. But he only had one hand, so he held the hairdryer and blew it here and there. Yu Lily's short hair was a little messy. In the end, she couldn't stand it anymore and slapped his hand away. Do you know how to do it? Well, of course, but it's inconvenient with only one hand. I'll do it myself. Don't move. Let me do it. Ming didn't want to let go, so he pressed her hand down and slowly began to blow. Yu Lily was blown even more messy. When Ming turned off the hairdryer, she was a little unhappy and crawled into the quilt. Ming put down the hairdryer, lifted the quilt, and crawled in. His hand touched his wife's body naughtily. Feeling her soft flesh, he whispered in her ear, "You're meaty." No woman liked to be called fat, and Yu Lily was no exception. She pinched his hand and drove it away. Then why are you still touching me? I like it. I was too thin before and it was uncomfortable to touch. Especially when she just came back from the capital, her body was as thin as a bamboo pole. She looked haggard and she was bullied. Now she was that lovely and beautiful little woman again. Thinking about it, he reached out and pinched her waist again. He slowly moved up and pinched her soft white skin. He leaned over and whispered, "Well, it's comfortable. Go away." Yu Lily pushed him away, but he immediately stuck to her again. He raised his big hand and turned her face. His lips sealed her mouth and Ming held her in his arms. He began to do whatever he wanted. When she got up the next day, Yu Lily's stomach was a little painful. Especially in her lower abdomen, the pain was like a drill. Holding her stomach, she went to the bathroom. Sure enough, it was her period. Fortunately, Ming had already prepared a lot of things for her. The feminine products were placed in the cabinet, and Yu Lily took a bag and immediately put them on. Her movements were very light, so she didn't wake up Ming, who was sleeping soundly. When he woke up, there was no one beside him. He washed up and changed his clothes. When he walked out, he saw breakfast on the table. It was a simple Chinese breakfast with soybean milk and fried dough sticks on the table. Yu Lily walked out with a plate of ham and eggs on it. When he saw Ming coming over, he greeted, "Good morning." "Who are you saying good morning to?" "With you." Yu Lily felt a little strange and looked at him. Ming walked over and took the plate from her hand. "What did you call me?" As soon as Yu Lily heard that, she knew what he was going to do. A sly smile flashed across his big eyes as he said, "Oh." Ming, who was originally full of expectations, was suddenly disappointed. He was a little dissatisfied. He frowned and said, "Change it." Ming. "Change again. That's all." Yu Lily shrugged. Ming walked over and gritted his teeth. He hugged her and kissed her lips. In a low voice he said, "Call me husband." Wife, call me. Husband?" Ming was finally satisfied. He held her head with his big hand and gave her a long, lingering morning kiss. Chapter 1280. Seeing Yu Lily like this, Ming subconsciously looked at the place she was covering and asked softly, "What's wrong? Is that here?" Yu Lily nodded, and her face, which was normal, gradually turned pale. Ming asked her to sit down on the chair and said, "Do you want to make brown sugar water? Where do you put it?" "No need. Help me get the medicine on the coffee table." Yu Lily bent over in pain and covered her stomach. Ming turned around and walked out. Soon he brought in the medicine that Yu Lily mentioned. However, this medicine was not the medicine that Ming had imagined for menstrual pain, but a box of common Fenbix. "This is a painkiller, right? Is it good for the body to take this?" Ming frowned. "It's not good for the body to take it normally, Is it okay for you to take it during your period? Yu Lily couldn't stand the pain anymore. She reached out and said, "This is a painkiller. Give it to me." It meant that she agreed that there was a problem with it. Ming threw the medicine box aside, pulled her up and said, "Can you walk?" However, looking at her appearance, it didn't seem like she could walk. Ming turned around and patted his shoulder. "Come up. I'll take you to the hospital." His hand was still bandaged. Otherwise, he would have picked her up and taken her to the hospital. Yu Lily was a little reluctant and said, "I'll just take some medicine and lie down for a while. I still have to go to work. I asked for leave yesterday. I've already arranged marriage leave for you. You can go to work after we return from our honeymoon. Or you don't go to work. I can afford to support you." Ming gritted his teeth. How is she still thinking about going to work in this situation? Yu Lily looked at his unhappy face and said, "It's okay, come up." Ming didn't allow her to argue. As he spoke, he tilted his head slightly and said, "How about I remove the gauze and carry you?" When Yu Lily heard that, she pouted and said, "I can walk by myself. Let's go. Don't turn around and press your hand. Your mother will fight me." Ming, who was originally angry, didn't know whether to laugh or cry when he heard that. He turned around and took her hand. Ming carefully helped her up. "Let's go." Yu Lily endured the pain and stood up, but this movement made her face even paler. Ming felt sorry for her and asked, "Aren't you a woman? Wasn't it only right and proper to come here? Why did it hurt so much? Why didn't you have this problem before?" His tone sounded a little annoyed, but the heartache in his voice was obvious. When Yu Lily heard that, she pursed her lips and didn't answer. Instead, she shrank back and said, "Why don't we not go to the hospital? I can't walk." What if a doctor told Ming that this was the sequelae of the miscarriage? Wouldn't Ming feel terrible? After so many years, this time, it wasn't particularly serious. Even if he didn't take any painkillers, he could just grit his teeth and endure it. Ming's heart tightened. Looking at her pale face, he said, "I'll carry you." Yu Lily resisted and pushed him away, saying, "I'm not going. Is it very uncomfortable?" Ming finally didn't insist. He reached out and gently held her waist. "I'll take you to the sofa to lie down." Chapter 1281. When he went downstairs again, Ming found Yu Lily lying on the sofa. Her face was extremely pale. Cold sweat broke out on his forehead, and his lips turned a little purple. Is it really okay not to go to the hospital in this situation? Ming scratched his head and suddenly felt a little panicked. After thinking about it, he picked up his phone and called 120. "Hello, this is Wuxia." Yu Lily was a little dizzy from the pain. When she heard that he was calling an ambulance, she almost laughed and shouted, "Hey, what are you doing?" Ming ignored Yu Lily. After thanking her, he hung up the phone. Yu Lily walked over and reached out to hit him weakly. She said coquettishly, "It's just menstrual cramps. Why are you calling an ambulance? That's so pretentious. Shut up and lie down." Ming reached out and wiped the cold sweat off her forehead. "Is it that serious? Could it be that he's sick? Is it not menstrual cramps? How can menstrual cramps be so serious?" Yu Lily was angry and amused at the same time. She leaned on him and held him weakly. "You're the one who is sick. It's normal for women to have menstrual cramps." Ming asked, "Really?" "Yeah." Ming was skeptical. He gently put her down and said, "I'll make some brown sugar water for you. Wait for me." "I didn't buy brown sugar." Yu Lily's words shattered his fantasy. "I don't have the habit of drinking it." Ming didn't like sweets, so he didn't prepare any. Ming was a little angry. He went back and reached out his big hand to gently stroke her belly. He asked, "Does it still hurt?" "It hurts." Yu Lily squinted and leaned against him. "But it's better than before." Ming took a deep breath and picked up his phone to call his friend. The call was quickly connected. "You don't have to come. I've called an ambulance." "Damn, I'm already on the way." Ming hung up the phone and put his big hand on her belly again. "Can I rub it?" "No," she said. "Well, there's blood inside. Will it not hurt if I rub it?" "What kind of nonsense is that?" Yu Lily was annoyed and amused at the same time. She said, "Your head was bruised when you hit it. Do you think it will go away just by rubbing it?" For a moment, Ming was speechless. Seeing that she was obviously in pain, he didn't dare to tease her anymore. He sat quietly by her side and guarded her. Yu Lily squinted her eyes and felt a little drowsy. After a few minutes, the sound of the ambulance could be heard. When Ming called the ambulance just now, he said that a woman was not feeling well and needed an ambulance. However, the nurses and doctors were speechless when they found out that the lady's discomfort was menstrual cramps. But when they saw Yu Lily's condition, they didn't dare delay. When they arrived at the hospital, Ming asked for a separate resting room. After she was hooked up to a drip and laid down for a while, Yu Lily's complexion improved. Yu Lily was in a deep sleep when she suddenly remembered something very important. When she opened her eyes, she saw Ming standing by her side. Her heart warmed and she called out, Ming. Yes. Didn't you say that you were going to serve tea to your parents today? Want to go later? This kind of thing I said yesterday, I have to do it today. Although I know that Ming's mother has a lot of opinions about me, at least I have to maintain my image. Chapter 1282. But I've already promised your mother. It's not good not to go, right? Yu Lily was a little scared at the thought of Ming's mother making things difficult for her. She was 80%, no 100% waiting to find fault with me so that Ming could break up with me. Oh no, it should be called a divorce now. If Ming's mother really did that, then she would be guilty and she would regret it. When Ming heard that, he laughed and gritted his teeth unhappily. Go back to seek death? Do you want to die on the road or at home? Yu Lily was speechless. What a vicious and mean mouth. Can't you hope for something better? Ming shut his mouth and said, Anyway, I'm not going back. Do whatever you want. If anything happens, I'll take responsibility. Yu Lily pinched him and said with dissatisfaction, You're trying to magnify the conflict between me and your mother. It's okay. I'll talk to her later. I'm fine. Let's go later, Ming. No. Okay. Ming didn't allow her to argue. He tapped her forehead. Don't you understand? I said no means no. Go back and rest well. The doctor said that you have a cold womb and it's very difficult to treat. You have to find a Chinese medicine practitioner to nurse your body. When Yu Lily heard that, her heart suddenly beat faster. When she saw Ming's expression, she suddenly lost her confidence and asked, What else did the doctor say? Ming looked at her deeply and shook his head gently. Nothing. What do you want him to say? Yu Lily pursed her lips and shook her head. Be good and lie down. When you're better, we'll go. Be good. Ming reached out and touched her forehead. It was so cold that it was frightening. Are you cold? No, she said. Sleep for a while. I'll wake you up when you're ready. Okay. Yu Lily was indeed not feeling well. She closed her eyes and soon, the sound of even breathing could be heard. Ming saw that she was asleep, so he got up and walked out. He felt a little annoyed and touched his pocket, but it was empty. He had gone out in a hurry and hadn't brought a cigarette. Ming wasn't addicted to cigarettes, but he always carried a box with him. He often left it there for a few days without touching a cigarette. But now he really wanted a stick to relieve the boredom in his heart. A woman's uterus cannot be underestimated. Not only will it affect the body, but it is also very likely to cause infertility. Looking at your wife's condition, it has not been a day or two. When she feels better, bring her here for a checkup. Why didn't she have this problem before? In the past, you acted as if nothing had happened. It's hard to say. It could be because she stayed up late for a long time or came into contact with frozen things. It could also be because she had a miscarriage or she didn't sit well after giving birth. Even abortion? Of course your wife had a miscarriage. Ming didn't know how to answer, so he gave a vague answer and quickly left. However, in the deepest part of his heart, he felt a dull pain as if something was tugging at it. Sequelae of miscarriage? So, she had been like this for the past 4 to 5 years? When he felt pain, he took painkillers instead of going to the hospital or calling for an ambulance. Moreover, it was very likely to cause infertility. Ming leaned against the door of the ward and let out a heavy sigh. His heart was like a heavy stone and it hurt. He didn't mind, but what about his mother? She had a strong opinion of Yu Lily. If she knew that Yu Lily might not be able to give birth, then... Chapter 1283. After the drip, Yu Lily had already woken up. But when she got home, she still fell asleep with her eyes closed. It was obvious that she was feeling very uncomfortable. As she fell asleep, Yu Lily got up again. She turned around and saw Ming sitting next to her. She asked, Have you had breakfast? Go and eat something. What time is it now? It's past 11 o'clock. Are you hungry? Yu Lily shook her head. She didn't feel hungry anymore. Go to sleep. Call me when you are hungry. Hearing that, Yu Lily nodded, closed her eyes and quickly fell asleep again. Ming had taken a wedding leave for the past few days, but he had nothing to do with Yu Lily's current condition. So, he asked Su Qing to send the important documents from the company to the villa and deal with them at home. But before the documents were delivered, he received a call from home. Looking at the time, it was almost 12 o'clock. Ming thought about what to say and then picked up the phone. Qiao Ziqing's voice came quickly with anger and shouted, "Why haven't you come back yet? Didn't you say you would come back today?" Ming was afraid of Qiao Ziqing's reaction, so he didn't dare to call back. After thinking for a moment, he said, "Mom, I am not feeling well today. I forgot to call you." Hearing that, Qiao Ziqing's aggressive tone suddenly softened a lot, and she asked anxiously, "What's wrong? Where do you feel uncomfortable? Does your hand hurt again? Did you go to the hospital?" "Well, I went. It's nothing serious. Now Lily is taking care of me and I am much better now." Ming lied without blinking. Hearing that, Qiao Ziqing became even more anxious and said, "Oh, where are you now?" "I am at home." "How can that be? Your woman looks like a child. She is still a child. How can she take care of people?" "Where are you? I will go to see you." "No, I have a headache. I'm hanging up." After that, before Qiao Ziqing could speak, Ming directly hung up the phone. Qiao Ziqing looked at the phone anxiously and called Ming again, but he didn't answer. Ming looked at the phone that kept ringing and felt a headache coming on. He couldn't let her come. If she knew that Lily wasn't feeling well and he was taking care of her, his mother would be even more upset. The information was quickly delivered. At about 2 or 3 o'clock, Ming was starving. When he went to the room, he found that Lily was still asleep. He reached out and touched her forehead. Perhaps it was because she was covered with a blanket, but her body felt a little warm. Fortunately, it was no longer cold. "You get up and eat." Ming's voice wasn't loud. She immediately opened her eyes and asked, "What time is it?" "Past 2 o'clock. Why don't we go to your mother's place? I feel uneasy." "Have you called your mother?" "Yes, I told her." "It's okay. What do you want to eat?" "I'll have it delivered." Lily was skeptical and asked, "Really?" "Of course, why would I lie to you?" "How about some porridge?" Lily calmed down and nodded. "Well, okay." By the time the meal was delivered, almost an hour had passed. However, there was another unexpected person who came along with the delivery boy. Chapter 1284. Ming's mental state was obviously much better than before. He seemed to be very energetic and even his complexion and appearance had become a lot better. Qiao Ziqing saw it and heard her son's words. She snorted and said, "If you don't tell me, I can't find it? Do you think I can't find it because you put this house under Lily's name?" Qiao Ziqing actually found a lot of real estate, but this one was bought 2 years ago, and it was only today that it was transferred to Lily's name. In addition, this place was the closest to Ming's best friend. Coupled with what her son said today and yesterday, Qiao Ziqing guessed about 70% to 80%. But when she stopped the car, she saw that the delivery box was from the porridge restaurant that Ming often ordered, so she was even more certain. She followed them to try her luck, and she didn't expect to bet correctly. "What's wrong with you?" She looked like she was fine. She didn't look like she had just come back from the hospital and needed someone to take care of her. Ming's lie was exposed and he felt a little embarrassed. He coughed lightly and let the person who delivered the porridge go in, record the bill and sign the bill. When he looked back, Qiao Ziqing had already walked around the villa. "Where's that woman?" Qiao Ziqing walked around. "The room is upstairs, right?" "Mom, wait a minute." But how could Qiao Ziqing listen to him? She had already walked upstairs. Lily was tired from sleeping. After freshening up, she opened the door and heard Qiao Ziqing's voice. Hearing this voice, Lily's heart was in her mouth. For a moment she stopped in place. She didn't know whether to go or go back. Qiao Ziqing came up and saw Lily standing at the door of the master bedroom. Looking at Lily's sickly pale face and her wrinkled clothes, he knew who really needed to be taken care of. Qiao Ziqing frowned and stepped forward. Lily was at a loss for a moment. She called out softly, "Auntie." But after thinking about it, she felt that something was wrong. She and Ming were married. How could she call her auntie? But if she called her mom, would she laugh at her and scold her? Ming quickly caught up. Seeing them in a stalemate, he quickly walked over and said, "Mom, why are you running around? Can't I walk around my son's house?" Qiao Ziqing glared at Ming and said, "Even if you gave it to someone else, I still have the right to do so." Gave it to someone else? What did he mean by that? Lily was a little confused and looked at Ming at the same time. Ming hurried forward, pulled Qiao Ziqing over and said, "Mom, Lily is not feeling well. Let's go down and have some porridge. It just arrived and it won't taste good when it's cold." "I can't afford it." "Why are you drinking porridge at this time? Other than having porridge for breakfast and supper, don't you drink coffee at other times?" Qiao Ziqing was obviously unhappy. She glared at Yu Lily and said sarcastically, "I'm not so lucky to be served by my son." The mockery in his words couldn't be more obvious. Yu Lily didn't say anything. She felt a little uncomfortable. "Mom?" Chapter 1285. Oming felt a headache coming on. Just as he was about to say something, Yu Lily said, "I'm sorry, Auntie. I didn't know I was feeling so unwell today. We just came back from the hospital. Did I talk to you?" How impudent. Qiao Ziqing was a little angry and shouted. "A person should know their place. Don't you know who you are and how much you are worth? You have no manners at all." Yu Lily felt the pain in her abdomen increase. Her face was not looking too good. She pursed her lips and said, "Auntie, I don't have parents." "But, Auntie, when someone is talking to you, you interrupted them without permission. Furthermore, you said that to a junior. Is that considered good manners?" Oming felt a headache coming on. He went up to Yu Lily and pulled her back. Both the old and the young were stubborn. The old one had been spoiled by his father. When he scolded someone, he didn't know how to control his temper. How could he stand such ridicule? As for the young one, she was also difficult to please. Things went south, the two of them might really start fighting. When Qiao Ziqing heard Yu Lily's words, she found it hard to believe. She was so angry that she laughed. Before she could say anything, Oming stepped between them and said, "I'm so hungry. If you continue to quarrel, do you want me to starve to death?" "Junior? Look at your attitude now. How are you behaving like a junior? You have no manners at all." Qiao Ziqing was furious. "Do you think that just because my son likes you, you can be our daughter-in-law? Let me tell you, no way. As long as I'm alive, you will never be able to marry into our family." Qiao Ziqing's words were harsh. Yu Lily suddenly had a wicked thought. "Your son and I have already registered our marriage. Go to hell." But she immediately suppressed the thought. Too bad. She opened her mouth but didn't say anything. She looked at Oming. "I'm hungry." Oming looked at them miserably. Both of them were grandmothers. He couldn't afford to offend either of them. Putting on a show was the safest way. After all, Qiao Ziqing was his mother. When she heard him say that, she snorted and turned her back. "Look at you. If you're hungry, eat. Who's stopping you from eating?" After saying that, he crossed his arms and walked down. When Oming saw that, he finally breathed a sigh of relief. He pulled on Yu Lily's hand and softly said, "Let's go down and eat." Yu Lily felt a little aggrieved and asked, "Can your mother still eat when you look at me?" "It doesn't matter. I'm here." Oming pulled her along. "Besides, my mom is full. She eats on time so she won't go hungry. He must have eaten at this hour." Yu Lily followed him downstairs. When he went downstairs, he found that Qiao Ziqing had already removed the packaging of the porridge. She had gone to the disinfecting cabinet in the kitchen to retrieve 2 sets of bowls and chopsticks. When Yu Lily saw it, her heart ached. 2 sets of cutlery, one for herself and one for Oming, right? The feeling of being ostracized was definitely not a good one. But Yu Lily had no idea what to do now. Enduring the pain in her lower abdomen and back, Yu Lily walked into the kitchen. She helped Oming and herself wash their hands carefully. Then she took a set of cutlery for herself and walked out. Qiao Ziqing had already cooled the porridge. When she saw Yu Lily take another set of cutlery out, she said unhappily, "Hey, are you looking down on me? Are you planning to do it yourself?" That. Chapter 1286. Yu Lily was taken aback. She looked at her and asked, "Is that for me?" When Qiao Ziqing saw the look of disbelief on her face, she suddenly felt a little awkward. She turned around and said, "Of course. This is my upbringing. If I'm serving it for my son, there's no reason I can't serve it for you. You're the only one who can measure the heart of a gentleman with your own mean measure." When she said that, Yu Lily's face turned red. "Indeed. I really do seem to be a little mean." Yu Lily put down the bowl and chopsticks and walked up to her. "Thank you. I'm sorry. I misunderstood you just now." Qiao Ziqing sat down at the table and looked at Yu Lily. She pouted and said, "Forget it. The more magnanimous you are, the better your upbringing is. I won't argue with you." Although that was what she said, Yu Lily still didn't feel comfortable saying it out loud. Weren't those words implying that Yu Lily's magnanimity and upbringing were poor? Sitting in the chair, he had originally thought that Oming's mother treated him well, but now, all of a sudden, he was gone. Even when she was eating, she felt that it was tasteless. After a few bites, Yu Lily couldn't eat anymore. She put the bowl in front of her and didn't move. "Not to your liking?" Oming looked at her. "Are you still not feeling well? Does it still hurt?" Yu Lily shook her head. "I can't eat anymore. I'm not hungry." Even if you're not hungry, you should eat more. You haven't eaten all day. How can you not eat? Ming frowned. More. If you can't eat any more, you can have some porridge and water. When Yu Lily heard that, she inadvertently looked up and saw Qiao Ziqing. Her heart was even more perturbed. She couldn't help but think, does Ming's mother think that I'm too delicate? I've never been loved by my parents since I was a child, and now I'm acting like a princess? Or, does she think that I'm doing it to prove how much her son cares about me? The more Yu Lily thought about it, the more unhappy she felt. Fortunately, Qiao Ziqing sat quietly at the side and didn't say anything. It was as if she hadn't heard anything. Yu Lily forced herself to eat 2 more bites. She really couldn't eat any more and said, I'm full. Are you sick? Qiao Ziqing could not help but ask, why are you making it so complicated? If you want to eat, then eat. If you don't want to eat, then don't eat. Why are you asking my son to serve you? Mom, don't all women have those days? You're a woman too. She was in so much pain in the morning that she couldn't even straighten her back. I called an ambulance and sent her to the hospital on a drip. Only then did she feel better, Ming explained. Yu Lily couldn't help but imagine what Qiao Ziqing would say next. She would probably say, you're so delicate. Who are you putting on a show for? Or, why did you call for an ambulance when you're having your period? You think I never came? Unexpectedly, Qiao Ziqing said, it's that serious? Has it always been like this? Yu Lily was a little surprised, but she quickly shook her head and said, only in the past few years. Not in the past. Tsk, I heard that you haven't been doing too well these past few years. Sure enough, people can't migrate. Once they migrate, they'll have bad luck. Look, with this bad luck, even your body has problems. Sigh. Qiao Ziqing seemed to sigh. But Yu Lily always felt that there was a hidden curse in every word she said. However, after thinking about it carefully, he couldn't come up with anything. What did she mean by those words? Yu Lily couldn't figure it out. She looked at Qiao Ziqing and nodded her head hesitantly. She echoed, that's true. Chapter 1287. I heard that. Who else would have said that? It had to be Ming. Ming's meaning couldn't be clearer. He probably wanted to use the name of the Shen family to pressure his mother. When Yu Lily heard that, she understood everything. She nodded her head, thought about her words and said, Granny Shen is very good to me. She wants me to visit her in the capital when I have time. When Qiao Ziqing heard that, she suddenly remembered the scene when old Mrs. Shen had brought Yu Lily to their house. From the looks of it, she was indeed very protective of the little girl. Although she is a little annoying, her luck is not bad, Qiao Ziqing said to herself. Yu Lily was speechless for a moment. Indeed, nothing good came out of a filthy mouth. Mom, aren't you going to eat a little? It's quite delicious. Ming changed the topic. Qiao Ziqing looked at him and said angrily, I'm not eating. If you have nothing to do, go home. Don't stay out all day. Don't let people think that I lost my son in my middle age. Yu Lily was speechless. Ming was speechless. All right, I'm leaving. Qiao Ziqing stood up and turned to walk out. Ming replied, take care. Yu Lily reached out and pointed at his head. Then she walked out and asked, did you drive here? Why don't I give you a ride? No, I have my own car. In the end, she added, is the red Jeep in the yard yours? Yu Lily was stunned and didn't know how to answer. Is it mine? Ming said he gave it to me, but I didn't dare to accept it. Now, she was probably trying to use this as a pretext again, wasn't she? Qiao Ziqing saw Yu Lily's expression and said angrily, what are you nervous about? If it is, then it is. If it isn't, then it isn't. As she said that, she opened the door and walked away. Yu Lily quickly followed her and followed her to the car. She watched her drive away before she walked in. As soon as she entered, she saw that Ming was still sitting at the dining table, perfectly fine. Yu Lily went up and said, how can you treat your mother like this? You didn't even send her off. What if she thinks that you've learned bad things from me? Ming almost spat out the porridge in his mouth. He laughed and said, what's there to send? She's not a child. However, I really didn't expect her to ask about the car. I was scared to death just now. If she knew that you bought it for me, I would be scolded by her again. Yu Lily sat on the side, her heart suddenly relaxed, and even her stomach began to feel hungry. After finishing the bowl of porridge, Yu Lily added some more. Ming looked at her and said, what are you afraid of? She won't eat you up. She can scold you if she wants. She has a sharp tongue, but her heart is not bad. Haven't you noticed? Her attitude toward you is much better than before. I didn't find anything. He was scared to death, so where would he find the time to discover this? After she finished eating, Ming was still eating. Yu Lily had slept enough and felt much more comfortable. She wandered around the living room in boredom. Walking to the coffee table, Yu Lily suddenly caught a glimpse of a red booklet. The gold words "Marriage Certificate" were particularly eye-catching. Yu Lily was shocked when she saw it. She immediately picked it up and opened it. The stamp inside was striking and the photo was beautiful. Isn't this my marriage certificate with O Ming? Chapter 1288. Looking at the marriage certificate, Yu Lily turned to look at O Ming nervously and said, "Why did you put the marriage certificate here?" O Ming turned his head and glanced at it. Then, without a care in the world, he said, "I look at it when I'm working. I look energetic." "But your mother seems to have seen it. What should we do?" "If she saw it, then she saw it," O Ming said. "What he wanted was for her to see it. Anyway, it is a fact that we are married. Why should we be afraid of letting others know?" Yu Lily was speechless, but she felt a little lucky and asked, "Did your mother see it or not? If she saw it, why didn't she react at all? But if she didn't see it, bah! How could she not see such a conspicuous thing placed here?" Thinking of Qiao Ziqing's softened expression and words, Yu Lily felt a little complicated. "Don't think so much. Just let nature take its course." O Ming folded the bowl and chopsticks. "I'm full." "Well, leave it. I'll wash it. You go back to work." "Your stomach doesn't hurt anymore?" "Much better. At least washing the dishes was absolutely no problem." "Let me do it." "You rest." Pfft. Yu Lily looked at his remaining hand. "Washing the dishes with one arm? That's not good, is it?" "It's a new trend," O Ming said. "Get lost. Don't take up space. Go back to work." Yu Lily waved her hand in disgust and shouted, "All right." Yu Lily quickly cleaned up the dishes and got some hot water to wash them. When she went out, she saw O Ming flying over the keyboard with one hand. He was typing very quickly. When he saw her come out, he waved at her. "Come over and take a look." On the computer screen was the face of a middle-aged woman in her 50s. Her skin was dark and her face was wrinkled. She was smiling at the camera. She was wearing a beautiful dark purple coat, and her short hair was curled into small black curls. "What's wrong? Who is this?" "This is the woman who gave birth to you. Her name is Su Meijian." As O Ming spoke, he brought up Su Meijian's information. "She's 54 years old this year and has 2 children. The older one is already over 30 years old, and the younger one is also close to 30. One of her children died more than 20 years ago. She's living a pretty good life now." Yu Lily looked at the completely unfamiliar woman in the photo. After a moment of silence, she asked, "Does she know me?" "Yeah, she doesn't really believe that you're still alive. After all, that year her child, who was already a full year old, had not survived. How could this newborn have such a tenacious life force? However, she had survived and she was living very well." "When are we going to find her?" "When you're better, let's go home. No matter what, I'm a newly married woman. Let's go home and cook a meal for our parents. Then we'll be honest with them. My dad's side is better. When the time comes, as long as we can convince my mom, we'll have a wedding." A wedding? She subconsciously thought of Li Siqing and Su Qianxi's grand and dreamy wedding in Ireland. The envy in her heart, which had stopped for a long time, overflowed again. "But what if we can't convince your mom?" "No, we definitely can." O Ming was full of confidence. "When the time comes, we'll tell the world that we're married." Just thinking about it made her feel sweet. Yu Lily slightly raised her lips. "Who is the world?" Chapter 1289. Yu Lily was caught off guard by his sweet nothings. She turned to look at him and wrinkled her nose. "How mushy." O Ming chuckled and pulled her to sit down. "Let me feel it. Where is it numb?" After resting at home for another 2 days, Yu Lily felt a lot more relaxed. On the 3rd day of her period, Yu Lily suggested going to O Ming's parents' house. She followed O Ming to the hospital to remove the cast before heading over to the O residence. Because she hadn't informed O Ming beforehand, Nanny Zhang was a little surprised when she saw him. When she saw Yu Lily behind him, she was even more surprised. She called out, "Madam, young master is back." As she called out, her gaze fell on O Ming's hand. "Is it better?" O Ming changed his shoes and walked in. "It's almost done. Just don't use too much force. And Nanny Zhang, this woman is my wife." He held Yu Lily in his arms without the slightest intention of avoiding her. Yu Lily met Nanny Zhang's surprised gaze and felt a little awkward. She called out, "Hello, Nanny Zhang." "Hello, hello, young madam. Come on in. I'll give you a new pair." Nanny Zhang was very quick. She turned around and took out a pair of pink shoes from the shoe cabinet. She had just unwrapped them and brought them to Lily's feet. Lily quickly took them from her and said, "I'll do it myself." "Thank you." Nanny Zhang's smile deepened. She nodded her head. "Sure." Lily put on the shoes and followed Oming inside. It was past 9 a.m. At that time, Qiao Ziqing was usually putting on a face mask and doing some exercise. Otherwise, she would go shopping with her friends at the spa. As for Huojin, he would be in his study or at the office. That was what Lily had learned from Oming. Lily even asked about their hobbies and interests. She was afraid that she would upset them. Indeed, after entering, Oming called out, "Dad, Mom?" His voice wasn't soft. Very quickly there was a response. Steady and gentle footsteps could be heard. Huojin was holding a tablet in his hand. He wore his glasses and didn't even look up from the tablet. He said, "You still know to come back." When he looked up and saw Lily, he smiled amiably. "You're here too. Have a seat." "Hello, Uncle," Lily greeted obediently. When he heard this, Huojin's smile deepened, but there was a deeper meaning behind it. "Where's Mom?" Oming asked. "Let's go to the yoga room. Go and take a look." Oming nodded his head. He took Lily's hand and led her inside. Lily resisted. She retracted her hand and said, "Would it be inappropriate for me to go in too? Wouldn't that seem very uneducated?" There was an 80% chance that he would be scolded later. Lily was a little worried, but Oming quickly said, "It's fine. My mother should be in the yoga room. Don't you know yoga too? You can exchange pointers." Hearing that, Lily braced herself and followed. However, as soon as he entered, he realized that Qiao Ziqing wasn't practicing yoga. Instead, she was sitting leisurely in the yoga room watching TV on her phone. Lily immediately recognized the melodramatic family drama that was being aired recently from the TV, as well as the unique voice of the female lead. Chapter 1290. Qiao Ziqing quickly switched off her phone and turned around. She was surprised to see Oming and asked, "You're finally willing to come back?" "I just arrived. Have you eaten?" "I was waiting for you." Qiao Ziqing's tone wasn't pleasant. She looked Lily up and down but didn't say anything. "You haven't eaten yet?" "We had breakfast and we're about to come here for lunch," Oming said as he held Lily's hand. Oming held Lily's hand. His expression was natural. He didn't seem to think there was anything wrong with what he had said. He continued, "Let Lily and Nanny Zhang cook together." Qiao Ziqing looked at Oming with disdain and snorted. "It's just a so-so. I can barely eat it." "She's still better than you," Oming thought to himself but didn't say it out loud. He held Lily's hand and followed Qiao Ziqing out. "Nanny Zhang, this girl said she wanted to help cook. Why don't you bring her along to buy groceries?" Qiao Ziqing stretched her back leisurely. Nanny Zhang was surprised and asked, "Young madam wants to cook?" "That's not necessary. I'll do it." "Young madam?" Qiao Ziqing turned her head and looked at her strangely. "Don't call her that. It won't look good if someone thinks too highly of herself." Although those words were directed at Nanny Zhang, Lily's face burned even hotter than Nanny Zhang. Nanny Zhang looked at Lily and hesitated. She didn't know what to say. Noticing that Lily's expression was a little awkward, Oming stood in front of her and said, "Mom, she's my woman. Can't you be more polite when you speak to her?" Qiao Ziqing laughed and looked at Lily meaningfully. "You don't even have this much tolerance and you still want to be our daughter-in-law? All right. Huojin tried to smooth things over. "Didn't you say you were going to buy groceries? Go on, Oming. Let's play a good game of chess." "I haven't seen you father and son play chess in a long time," Oming said. "Let's go to the study." She deliberately brushed past Lily's shoulder as she spoke. She completely ignored Lily. Lily's eyes lit up. "What are you talking about?" When Huojin heard that, he waved his hand and said, "Why are you going? We're father and son talking for a while. You go and buy some groceries. You don't want to get moldy staying at home all day. Go, the three of us will go together." The three women he was referring to were Qiao Ziqing, Lily, and Nanny Zhang. Upon hearing this, Qiao Ziqing naturally knew that he was trying to send her away. She was a little unwilling, but seeing her husband's determined expression, she nodded and said, "Okay, let's go buy groceries together." Auntie Zhang was overwhelmed by the favor. Usually, she was the one who did all these things by herself. Not only did a little girl suddenly come to help, but even the arrogant mistress also went to help buy groceries. However, he did not dare to have any objections and quickly led them out of the door. Auntie Zhang walked straight out of the door. Qiao Ziqing stopped at the door and asked, "Aren't you driving?" Auntie Zhang turned her head and explained, "The market is only 10 minutes from here. We'll just walk for some exercise. There's no need to drive." 10 minutes? Xiao Ziqing was a little surprised. Is that close? Why didn't I know? Is it a supermarket or a market? A market, Auntie Zhang replied. Xiao Ziqing was even more disgusted. Isn't that dirty? Chapter 1291. Is that so? Xiao Ziqing didn't believe her and looked at Nanny Zhang. Nanny Zhang nodded her head. Yes, madam. If you mind, we can go to the nearby supermarket, but there won't be much variety. We can just pick what's available. Forget it. It's too restrictive. Xiao Ziqing waved her hand. Let's go to the market. I haven't been there in a long time. Nanny Zhang felt a little helpless. She looked at Yu Lily and asked, "The smell there might be a little strong. Is that okay?" Of course. I also like to eat fresh ingredients. Yu Lily smiled. Her attitude was calm and amiable. Nanny Zhang's impression of the young lady improved. She nodded her head and led them to the market. Before they entered, Xiao Ziqing couldn't take it anymore. It's so noisy. It smells so bad. This is the market. If you're not used to it, you can wait here. Nanny Zhang and I will go in to buy something. We'll come out to fetch you later. Yu Lily tried to make her voice sound as gentle as possible. However, when Xiao Ziqing heard these words, they sounded more like sarcastic remarks. Xiao Ziqing's lips curled up. If you can go in, why can't I? With that, she walked in. As if in a fit of pique, she stepped into the market step by step. Xiao Ziqing was wearing a blue coat that looked very expensive, and she was wearing a pair of high heels. Yu Lily was a little shocked. She walked to her side, afraid that she would accidentally fall. But she was also afraid that she would incur Xiao Ziqing's disgust. Yu Lily walked to the side and kept an eye on Xiao Ziqing as she walked. Her movements were very subtle and difficult to detect. Nanny Zhang didn't notice, but Xiao Ziqing did. Xiao Ziqing didn't expose her. Her movements slowed down. Xiao Ziqing had only tagged along to join in the fun. She had no idea which ingredients were fresh and which weren't. Yu Lily had gradually gotten used to the smell of the market. She relaxed and helped Nanny Zhang pick out the ingredients. Nanny Zhang was a little surprised. Do you come to the market often? Yeah. I often cook for myself. I like freshness and variety. As I buy, I learn how to buy. Nanny Zhang understood. That's great. Your culinary skills must be pretty good, right? We must have a good taste later, don't you think so, madam? It's just so. Xiao Ziqing turned her head proudly and her gaze landed on the vegetable stall next to her. Nanny Zhang felt a little helpless. She whispered to Yu Lily, "She's just like that. Her mouth is unforgiving, but her heart isn't bad. You'll get used to it." Yu Lily knew that Nanny Zhang wasn't the only one who had said that. He nodded. I know. The three of them strolled around for a long time. After some consideration, they decided to make 5 dishes and 1 soup. Just as he was about to head out after buying the ingredients, a man in ragged clothes ran towards him. Xiao Ziqing hadn't been paying attention. When she looked up and saw who it was, she was so frightened that she jumped up. At the same time, she let out a loud roar. Yu Lily had been paying attention to her high heels all the time, afraid that she would drop them. She didn't expect Xiao Ziqing to suddenly act like this. Seeing that she lost her balance and fell to the side, he subconsciously went up to hold her. Chapter 1292. With that, the two of them fell down one after the other, as there was no gravity to support them. Xiao Ziqing sat on the ground, but Yu Lily wasn't so lucky. Not only was her own body weight affected, but the force of gravity that Xiao Ziqing had pulled her down was no joke either. Her whole body fell flat on the ground, and there was a puddle of dirty water on the ground. Many people looked over. When Xiao Ziqing saw that, she exclaimed, "Lily!" She quickly got up and pulled Yu Lily up. Nanny Zhang was also frightened. Who knew that such a thing would happen? But she was still carrying a lot of fresh ingredients that she had just bought, and she couldn't let go of them. Yu Lily looked at Xiao Ziqing, but her eyes weren't on her. Instead, she was looking behind Xiao Ziqing. The person who had just scared Xiao Ziqing was hiding in the crowd and looking over. As if sensing Yu Lily's gaze, he turned around and ran away in fear. This time, Yu Lily could clearly see the person's appearance. He was short and his clothes were old and tattered. No one was too close to him, and some even avoided him in disgust. He looked like a beggar. Xiao Ziqing pulled Yu Lily up and took a closer look. She saw the obvious black patch in front of Yu Lily and quickly asked, "Are you okay?" Yu Lily shook her head and looked away. When she saw the mess on her body, she laughed at herself and said, "What a bad trip. Qiao Ziqing didn't say anything. When she saw everyone looking at her, she pulled Yu Lily and said, "I was about to fall. Why did you come? Aren't you stupid?" In the end, the two of us fell together. How embarrassing. As he spoke, he immediately pulled Yu Lily toward the exit. Yu Lily turned her head to look at the mess on the ground. The ingredients that she had just picked up were all ruined. What a waste. Qiao Ziqing looked at her with disgust and said, "It's good enough that you can take care of yourself. Why bother with that? Just get Nanny Zhang to buy the ingredients later. Let's go back." Yu Lily turned her head and saw Qiao Ziqing's back. Her eyes darkened, and a phrase that she had heard a lot recently came to her mind. Actually, she was just sharp-tongued. When they got home, Yu Lily asked Qiao Ziqing not to disturb O Ming or his father. She asked Qiao Ziqing to take her to O Ming's room to take a shower. She found a loose shirt and put it on before coming out to dry her hair. However, she didn't expect to see a pink dress on O Ming's bed when she walked out. The thickness was just right for this season. But pink? O Ming knew that she didn't like pink. Therefore, this set of clothes shouldn't have been prepared by O Ming. Qiao Ziqing was the only one left. Yu Lily's eyes darkened. She went forward and took off the clothes. She drew on the clothes and looked at the brand. It was a very good brand. It was definitely not bought at the last minute. But was Qiao Ziqing going to leave this kind of clothing at home, ready to wear at any time? How could this be? Just as Yu Lily was thinking, there was a knock on the door and it opened. Qiao Ziqing glanced at it and snorted coldly. "You got lucky. Hurry up and change. We're waiting for you to help in the kitchen." Chapter 1293. After saying that, Qiao Ziqing quickly left. When Yu Lily heard that, she quickly changed her clothes, but the clothes she was wearing were unexpectedly suitable. Could it be that it was originally prepared for Shin Manting? Otherwise, why would O Ming's mother suddenly prepare clothes for a young girl? From the looks of it, it couldn't have been prepared for herself, let alone for Yu Lily. Yu Lily racked her brains and could only think of one possibility. She felt a little sour in her heart, but she still dried her hair and went to the kitchen. The clothes that Yu Lily was wearing were just right for the occasion. It was a very youthful style. When Nanny Zhang saw Yu Lily dressed like that, her eyes lit up. But she quickly thought of another important point and said, "Why are you still here? You haven't dried your hair yet. You have to take care of yourself first before you can take care of my young master. Let me get you a hairdryer." "No need. It'll be dry in a while. Nanny Zhang, let me help you." Qiao Ziqing looked over and said, "Why are you so delicate? You're not the daughter of a big family and you're not cold. Come and help wash the vegetables." Yu Lily nodded her head and walked over. She immediately took over the hairdryer. Nanny Zhang wanted to say something, but in the end she didn't and continued cooking. Yu Lily's culinary skills were excellent. Throughout the meal, Nanny Zhang looked at and smelled Yu Lily's dishes. She couldn't stop praising her. As for Qiao Ziqing, she didn't pay much attention to it and didn't say anything. She continued to help in name, but in reality she was just helping out. When the dishes were placed on the dining table, Qiao Ziqing went to the study to call the father and son out. The father and son weren't playing chess. They were just sitting in front of the chessboard and talking. Qiao Ziqing had expected this and didn't expose them. When they came out, O Ming saw Yu Lily's outfit. He was surprised and asked, "Why did you change?" Nanny Zhang was about to speak when she saw Yu Lily gently shaking her head. When O Ming saw that, he vaguely understood something. He planned to ask her about it later that night. He nodded his head and said, "It looks good." Yu Lily forced a smile and helped them get their food. Finally, when everyone from the O family had left the table, Yu Lily sat down beside O Ming. Auntie Zhang was also invited to sit at the dining table. It looked very harmonious. Lily's culinary skills are really good. She looks, smells and tastes great. She cooks even better than I do. "Sir and madam, please have a taste," Nanny Zhang said enthusiastically. O Huajin chuckled and said, "I smelled it the moment I came out. I thought your culinary skills had improved again, but it turns out the chef has changed." Such a compliment made Yu Lily a little embarrassed. She said, "Thank you, uncle." "You still call me uncle?" O Huajin's expression stiffened, but he did not show any anger. He corrected her, "We are family. How should you address them?" Yu Lily was shocked and turned to look at O Ming. However, O Ming was busy eating as if he hadn't heard O Huajin's words. Yu Lily was at a loss. She reached out and grabbed his thigh. In a low voice she asked, "Did you tell him?" "They're not blind." O Ming gently touched the rings on his finger. "Call me daddy." Such a sudden change made Yu Lily somewhat at a loss. He had thought that it would take a long time, or at least there would be a foreshadowing or something. Chapter 1294. For a moment Yu Lily's face turned red. Faced with the gazes of everyone around her, Yu Lily's face grew hotter. She whispered, "Dad?" louder. "Who are you addressing with that soft voice?" Ming's eyes were filled with ridicule, but the depths of his peach blossom eyes were filled with gentleness and endless affection. Yu Lily was a little embarrassed by his gaze. She reached out and pinched his thigh. Ming avoided it and asked, "Dad, did you hear me?" Huajin could tell that his son was up to no good. He shook his head and laughed. "I didn't hear you." Louder. "What did you call me?" Yu Lily replied, "Dad." Her voice wasn't soft, but her face was getting redder and redder. As he spoke, he did not forget to glance in Xiao Ziqing's direction. He was afraid that this mother-in-law would suddenly make a sound and mock him. Fortunately, Xiao Ziqing didn't make a sound. She looked at Yu Lily and seemed to be waiting for something. Yu Lily didn't know if it was an illusion, but the fear in her heart gradually dissipated. She weakly called out, "Mom?" Xiao Ziqing pursed her lips. She didn't know if it was out of disdain or something else. She raised her chopsticks and said, "Let's eat." Huajin chuckled and said, "You?" Xiao Ziqing was a little unhappy. She frowned and said, "What about me?" "Eat your food." Ming reached out his chopsticks and picked some food for Yu Lily. He whispered into her ear, "Dear, hurry up and eat. I told Dad that I'll be resting at home tonight. I won't be going back." Yu Lily felt her body go limp. Yu Lily felt that she was very impressive to be able to stay in the O household, but Ming had actually asked her to stay the night. That was too difficult. What shocked Yu Lily the most was that Xiao Ziqing had accepted it. She had accepted the way she was addressed without any objection or sarcasm. Did that mean that Ming's mother was slowly beginning to accept her? When Yu Lily thought of that possibility, she felt a sense of joy rise in her heart. It gradually spread and sublimated. Yu Lily was still in a daze until the end of the meal. After the meal, Yu Lily sat at the dining table and waited to help clear the table. When Xiao Ziqing stood up, Yu Lily felt that she shouldn't be sitting there. She didn't know what to do. Ming noticed her embarrassment and whispered, "What's wrong? Are you stupid?" Yu Lily looked up at him blankly. Ming chuckled and pulled her into the room. Once she entered the room, Yu Lily relaxed without the stares of the people around her. "Why didn't you tell me earlier? I thought your parents didn't know. Now that you've done this, what have I become? Doesn't this mean that I'm lying to them?" "You're not the only one, and this was all my idea," Ming said nonchalantly. When Yu Lily saw Ming's reaction, she became even more annoyed. She yelled, "But that won't do either. I even pretended in front of your mother." Chapter 1295. When Yu Lily heard Ming's words, she let out a sigh of relief. She rolled her eyes and glared at Ming. "You scared me to death." Ming's lips curled up, and the smile in his eyes deepened. In fact, the first half was the truth. However, Ming didn't say anything more. He turned to look at her and said, "My mom likes to practice yoga in the afternoon. Go and play with her. Don't you know how to do it too?" Play with Ming's mother? Yu Lily felt a little strange. She looked at Ming and asked, "Can I? Your mom hates me so much. If I go and play with her in the afternoon, will I get scolded?" That was what Yu Lily was most afraid of and most worried about at the moment. How could that be? Ming looked at Yu Lily with a deep gaze. He smiled and said in a low voice, "Don't think too much. Scaring yourself is the scariest thing. If you talk to Mom nicely, she won't make things difficult for you." "Then, when I see your mom later, what should I call her? Do I really have to call her Mom?" Yu Lily frowned. The thought of Ming's mother scolding her for this made her feel particularly uncomfortable. Hesitantly, she whispered, "Will your mother think that I'm being overly sentimental? What if she scolds me?" Yu Lily asked. "No, my mother isn't as scary as you think." Ming didn't know whether to laugh or cry. "How much psychological trauma did my mother leave in you? Don't be afraid. Just think of my mother as me. In fact, sometimes my words are a little harsh. It's more than just a little harsh. It's very harsh." Yu Lily pouted her lips and muttered. Ming didn't know what to say at that moment. He pinched her face and said, "Go. The yoga room is where I took you just now. Remember not to be too reserved and don't be too deliberate. My mother just has a bad mouth." With that, he couldn't help but kiss her on the lips and whisper, "My mother is also your mother. In the future, you have to slowly learn to change the way you address her. When you see Dad later, you should also call him Dad." Do you understand? Yu Lily found it hard to accept. This development seemed a little too fast. When she saw his expression, Yu Lily had no choice but to nod her head and say, "Got it. What are you going to do now?" "I'm going out with Dad. I won't be home in the afternoon. You stay at home with Mom. You have to get along well. If Mom makes things difficult for you, give me a call. I'll be right back." Yu Lily's heart calmed down a little. She nodded her head and said, "I got it. You can go back to your work." "Well, you go first." Ming gave her a gentle push. Yu Lily was a little scared, but she still walked out without looking back. When they arrived at the yoga room, Chao Zicheng was really doing yoga inside. There was a radio in front of him, playing beautiful music and stories. The volume of the beautiful female voice was just right, and the pace of the story was also very touching. Yu Lily stood in front of the yoga room and gently knocked on the door. "Can I come in?" In front of Chao Zicheng was a large mirror. There was nothing much in the yoga room, but there were a lot of mirrors. Chao Zicheng had seen her a long time ago, but when she saw the hesitant look on her face, she did not say anything. Hearing her voice, Chao Zicheng said nonchalantly, "Come in then." Chapter 1296. When Yu Lily heard Chao Zicheng's impatient tone, her heart trembled. But soon he walked in and struck up a conversation. "Are you doing yoga?" Chao Zicheng glanced at her and asked, "Can't you tell?" "I'm dancing ballet." Yu Lily was stunned. She never expected to get such an answer. She stared at her with a face full of question marks. Ah. This movement, this posture, this waist, this appearance, it was clearly yoga. Is ballet like this? Chao Zicheng found it funny when she saw Yu Lily's reaction. She asked, "Did Ming ask you to come here?" Indeed, it was Ming who had called her. But if she admitted it, wouldn't it show that she was insincere? Seeing the look on Yu Lily's face, Chao Zicheng knew she was right. He rolled his eyes at her and grumbled, "I knew it." When this girl saw him, she was like a mouse that had seen a cat. She couldn't wait to run away, so why would she send herself to his doorstep? Chao Zicheng decided to ignore her. She listened to the radio and slowly got to work. Yu Lily watched from the side as she did her yoga. After a long time she said, "Thank you for the dress. It suits me very well." Although it was very likely that this was originally intended for Shin Manting. But at this time she still benefited from it, and this thank you should be given. Chao Zicheng cast a sidelong glance at her and unceremoniously exposed her. "Don't try to find something to talk about. If you have nothing to do, let's get up and exercise together. That way you won't fall the next time you encounter something like this." When Yu Lily heard that, she thought for a moment before taking off her shoes and stepping onto the yoga mat in front of Chao Zicheng. Kneeling down, the posture was standard. The yoga mat was so big that it took up half of the yoga room. Yu Lily's clothes were relatively loose. It was a sporty outfit. Currently, Chao Zicheng was performing a classic yoga pose which was a little difficult. Yu Lily usually did yoga as a hobby. She exercised her body when she was free, so her movements were not very standard. Seeing Chao Zicheng's reaction, Yu Lily didn't dare to embarrass herself. Chao Zicheng glanced at her and asked, "What are you doing? Do you have to pray before exercising?" The obvious teasing made Yu Lily blush. She replied, I don't really know how." "If you don't know, then learn. Everything has to be learned. Do you think you'll learn it just by being in a daze?" Chao Zicheng's movements were as smooth as flowing water, slow and unhurried, but the curves of her movements were very pleasing to the eye. No wonder Chao Zicheng's figure was so well maintained. With such a soft waist and such standard movements, it was obvious that she wasn't an amateur. Yu Lily imitated Chao Zicheng's movements and began to move slowly. However, before Chao Zicheng could finish her set, she couldn't help but say, "Straighten your chest. Do you have a hump?" Yu Lily's heart skipped a beat. She complained in her heart, but she immediately did as she was told. "Raise your hands high. Can't you lift it because you haven't eaten?" "Yu Lily, are there treasures on the ground? Why are you lowering your head? Raise your chin." Yu Lily, Chao Zicheng was a little strict. More importantly, she was very blunt with her words. But, for the entire afternoon she was indeed teaching Yu Lily. Yu Lily practiced for about an hour before Chao Zicheng stopped. She said, "You're indeed an amateur. All right, come back tomorrow." Tomorrow? Yu Lily's heart skipped a beat. She couldn't help but feel happy. Chapter 1297. As soon as that thought popped up, Yu Lily immediately felt that she was overthinking things. Discarding this thought, Zhang Xian nodded and hurriedly followed behind. Without looking back, Qiao Ziqing walked out of the yoga room and asked, "What do you usually do in the afternoon?" Yu Lili didn't dare to walk too fast or too slowly. She followed closely behind Qiao Ziqing, looking a little uneasy. When she heard the question, Yu Lili thought for a moment before replying, "I'll go to work. I usually go to work half a day." "What about the weekends?" "On the weekends, I'll draw at home." "Painting?" Qiao Ziqing looked a little surprised. Then a look of realization dawned on her face. "Oh yes, you draw comics, right? How can you stay at home all day? You don't know how to do yoga and you don't even exercise on the weekends. What's the difference between you and a salted fish?" Qiao Ziqing had a look of disdain on her face as she walked out and headed to the changing room to change her clothes. Yu Lili was a little embarrassed and tried to defend herself. "Actually, I go out for a jog every morning." "Oh," Qiao Ziqing replied and didn't say anything else. Yu Lili was a little embarrassed and didn't know what to say. Qiao Ziqing walked into the changing room. She glanced at Yu Lili and said, "Go get changed. Let's go out for a walk." Yu Lili was stunned, and her heartbeat suddenly accelerated. "Shall we go for a walk together? With Qiao Ziqing alone? What are you waiting for? If you don't want to go, I'll wait for you." Qiao Ziqing frowned and waved her hand. Yu Lili quickly nodded. "I'll go right away. Wait for me." Just as she turned around, she suddenly remembered. "I didn't bring any clothes with me." Qiao Ziqing turned her head and gave Yu Lili a strange look. "Didn't you go into the walk-in closet?" His words made Yu Lili blink, then she turned around and went back to her room. Her room was naturally Ming's room. She really didn't come into the cloakroom. She just went through the wardrobe at the door and took out one of Ming's clothes to wear. The walk-in closet was next to the bathroom. Yu Lili turned around and saw Ming's closet. When he opened them, he saw that they were all men's clothes. There was a wardrobe inside the men's wardrobe. Yu Lili opened it and saw a dazzling array of clothes hanging there. There were many colors, but most of them were red. She looked at the measurements and found that they were all her measurements. Not many, but at least 7 or 8. This was prepared by Ming? She originally thought that the pink dress she was wearing had been prepared by Qiao Ziqing for Shin Manting. Now that she thought about it, Shin Manting was a northerner and was much taller than her, so it couldn't be that. The resistance deep in Yu Lili's heart suddenly disappeared. After he changed his clothes, he opened the door and saw Qiao Ziqing coming out of the room at the same time. Qiao Ziqing glanced at the red dress she was wearing. It was hard to tell whether it was a compliment or a sarcasm. She muttered softly, "It looks pretty good." Yu Lili touched her head, lowered her head, and did not speak. "Let's go." Qiao Ziqing put on her handbag and looked like a rich lady. She said, "I asked a few friends to have tea together. I heard that my son brought a woman back, so I wanted to meet you. Don't embarrass me." Hearing that, Yu Lili's heart skipped a beat. Is she going to bring me to meet someone? Chapter 1298. When Yu Lili thought about that, she felt that she was overthinking things. Maybe Ming's mother was just bored, so she took me out to see the world? But at that moment, Yu Lili didn't dare to say anything else. She followed them into the garage. "Do you know how to drive?" Qiao Ziqing suddenly asked. Yu Lili immediately replied, "Yes." "Well, you drive." After Qiao Ziqing unlocked the car door, she threw the key to Yu Lili and sat in the front passenger seat. Yu Lili couldn't figure out what this woman was trying to do. It was said that a woman's heart was like a needle at the bottom of the sea. Yu Lili finally understood the true meaning of that sentence. Yu Lili didn't dare to delay any further. She drove to a high-class leisure place that Qiao Ziqing had designated. She parked the car and followed Qiao Ziqing upstairs. When they entered the private room, there were 2 or 3 rich women in good shape. Even their skin looked very good. From their appearance, they didn't look much different from Qiao Ziqing. If Yu Lili didn't know their real age, she would probably think that they were in their 30s. "You're here. Hey, who is this girl?" One of the rich women was a little surprised. "Why did you bring a girl today?" Qiao Ziqing didn't answer. She turned around and sat down in front of them. The waiter served tea. Qiao Ziqing slowly took a sip and introduced her to Yu Lili. "This is Li Pingting, my good friend." She was the rich woman who had just spoken to Qiao Ziqing. Yu Lili nodded and smiled politely. "Hello, Auntie Li. This is also my good friend, Qiao Meng." "Hello, Auntie Qiao," Yu Lili greeted politely. "I am Zhuang Yunhua." Another woman introduced herself and looked at Yu Lili with a smile. "You must be Ziqing's daughter-in-law. You're pretty good to be able to deal with Ming." Daughter-in-law, those 3 words made Yu Lili feel a little guilty. She smiled awkwardly and subconsciously looked at Qiao Ziqing. Xiao Ziqing put down the teacup and said, "She's afraid of strangers. By the way, Yunming, is your daughter's wedding day coming soon?" Yu Lili knew that this was a change of topic. She quietly breathed a sigh of relief. Zhuang Yunhua quickly started chatting with Xiao Ziqing. The girls sat together, drinking tea and chatting. The laughter grew louder and louder, and no one paid any attention to Yu Lili. The sisters were bored, so they set up a table to play mahjong. Yu Lili would occasionally help pour tea. She was very quiet. However, from the beginning to the end, Xiao Ziqing did not introduce them to the girl she had brought with her. Li Pingting was a short-tempered person. Her original patience was almost worn out. Finally, she shouted, "Ziqing, why isn't your daughter-in-law saying anything? What's her name?" Li Pingting wasn't the only one who felt that way. Even the other two sisters felt that Yu Lili was too low-key. Hearing the word daughter-in-law again made Yu Lili even more embarrassed. Was she now Mother O's daughter-in-law? Xiao Ziqing probably wouldn't admit it. Unexpectedly, Xiao Ziqing only gave Yu Lili a sidelong glance and leisurely said, "Who knows? Maybe she's looking down on you, Dongfeng." A mahjong tile hit, and Yu Lili's heart was also shocked, and then it was full of waves. Chapter 1299. Yu Lili looked at Xiao Ziqing with her eyes wide open in disbelief. Xiao Ziqing didn't look at her. She continued to chat with her friends and play cards. Yu Lili was a little happy, but she quickly waved her hands and explained, "No. How could I be like that?" "Then why didn't you say anything? You've been here for so long and I don't even know what your name is," Xiaoming said. "My name is Yu Lili, Auntie Xiao." "Yu Lili, why does this name sound so familiar? No wonder you look so familiar. You're the mistress who caused a ruckus with Oming some time ago, right?" Zhuang Yunhua's words were not at all tactful. It was so straightforward that it made Yu Lili feel a little awkward. "How can you say that?" Li Pingting pushed Zhuang Yunhua and rebuked her. But it was obvious that they already knew who Yu Lili was. "She's not a mistress now. Since she's been brought here, she must be married to Oming," Xiaoming said. "But why haven't I heard any news? Is it a secret marriage?" Yu Lili had expected to see contempt, disdain, or something else on their faces. But it seemed that Yu Lili was gauging the heart of a gentleman with her own mean measure. These women, who were obviously about the same age as Xiao Ziqing, were just gossiping on the side. They had no intention of targeting her. Just as Yu Lili was about to answer, she was interrupted. "I guess so. Young people nowadays like to play this game. To put it nicely, it's low-key, but in fact they love to cause trouble. Who doesn't get married at some point? Why do they have to settle everything before they have a wedding? Hey, what's your name? Yu Lili, is it? Was it Oming's idea for you to do this?" Zhuang Yunhua looked as if she had seen through everything. She clicked her tongue and shook her head. "It's not that I want to say this, but Oming, that rascal, has been especially good at causing trouble since he was young. His parents were so angry. I used to want to marry my daughter to that rascal. Later I was frightened by that rascal, so I gave up on that idea." "That's right," Xiaoming chimed in. "It's not that other girls don't like Oming, but no one can stand his temper. You're really something. You're able to stand his temper. It's true love." Could be seen that these Andes had known Xiao Ziqing for a long time. Their relationship was so good that everyone just laughed it off. Hearing that, Yu Lili tried to recall what Oming looked like. Thinking of Oming's unbearable temper and poisonous mouth, she smiled and said, "I've known Oming for many years. I met him when I was 17. After that, we separated for a period of time." She looked at them and said, "Later I went to Beijing. Something happened and Oming brought me back." It was a simple sentence, but there was an indescribable sorrow in it. Fortunately, she did not succeed in dying. Otherwise, this day wouldn't have come. Only after surviving the rain could one see the rainbow. No matter what, old O's son finally has someone who wants him. Zhuang Yunhua waved her hand and said, "Come on, let's play cards together. Get your mother to step aside." Chapter 1300. Yu Lili was suddenly called. She looked at Zhuang Yunhua and stammered, You do it. I don't want to fight anymore. These old women have bad luck and always say that I'm bullying them. Let them see what good luck is." Xiao Ziqing stood up, pulled Yu Lili down and pressed her down. "You do it." Seeing Yu Lili's confused expression, she asked, "Why are you standing there? Don't you know how to play?" Yu Lili thought for a moment and said, "I think so. If you do, then so be it. If you don't, then so be it." "What do you mean by, probably?" Xiao Ziqing asked from behind. Yu Lili thought about it again and asked, Do I want to win or lose? Her voice was very soft as she turned to look at Xiao Ziqing. Yu Lily's eyes were deep and dark brown. When Xiao Ziqing saw her eyes, her beautiful and exquisite eyebrows rose slightly. In a loud voice she said, "Kill them all." Hearing Xiao Ziqing's words, the women behind her were in an uproar. With a look of disdain they mocked, "Can you do it? Don't brag. Just because your luck is good doesn't mean your daughter-in-law's luck is good. Your daughter-in-law is so young. I don't think she knows how to play. When we win all your money later, don't say that we bullied the young." Being provoked, Xiao Ziqing became even more excited. She gently pushed Yu Lily and said, "Did you hear that? Don't embarrass me. You have to beat them." Okay. With a heavy burden on her shoulders, Yu Lily immediately perked up. Looking at the cards in front of her, Yu Lily looked at them and played a seemingly useless 3 dice. "Draw," someone shouted. With that draw, the rest of her luck seemed to be running away. Every time Yu Lily played a card, she was either knocked or hit. This round was a terrible loss. "You want to beat us like that? Ahaha. Ziqing, you're bragging too much." Xiao Ziqing glanced at them and said nonchalantly, "This is just the beginning. What's the rush?" Yu Lily was a little embarrassed. She turned to look at Xiao Ziqing and said, "Why don't you do it?" "Continue." Xiao Ziqing sat down at the spot where Yu Lily had been sitting. Yu Lily had to bite the bullet and continue playing. In the next 2 or 3 games Yu Lily lost miserably. The most terrifying round was in the 3rd round, when the cannon fired 3 times. The other 3 families were all laughing happily, but they didn't forget to provoke Xiao Ziqing, saying, "Aren't you talking big? It seems like your daughter-in-law really doesn't know anything. Why don't you do it yourself? Don't lose too badly." Xiao Ziqing, who was drinking her coffee, pouted her lips and said in disdain, "You guys are just lucky." The 3 women burst into laughter and said, "This time you can draw the cards first. Don't say that we, as your elders, are bullying you." Yu Lily was also a little embarrassed. Losing money was not a big deal, but losing face was a big deal. He nodded and said, "Thank you, Auntie." The 3 women laughed even more happily, but soon they couldn't laugh anymore. In the 4th round Yu Lily was in a daze. Everyone was stunned and couldn't believe it. Impossible. Her luck is too good. It was also the first time that Yu Lily had caught a daze. Her heart was bursting with joy. Just as she was about to say a few humble words, she heard Xiao Ziqing say, "It's all because you guys went easy on me. Look, isn't this luck?" Chapter 1301. Following that, Yu Lily's luck seemed to have turned on, and she couldn't stop winning. In the end, the women lost so much that they lost all their energy. Xiao Ming pushed the cards back and shouted, "I'm not playing anymore, I'm not playing anymore. Looks like we can't give away our good luck. Look, if we give away our good luck, we won't be lucky anymore." Yu Lily was embarrassed to lose and embarrassed to win. When she heard that, she said, "I was just lucky. Your skills are still better." "What skills? It's just a matter of luck. Forget it. It's too late now. I'll go home and pretend to make dinner. You guys have fun." Zhuang Yunhua was the first to bid farewell. Following that, the others also left one after another. Xiao Ziqing sighed and said, "Every time I lose, I blame it on my luck. It's obvious that I'm not as good as others." "Shut up. Don't speak. Get lost." His words drew the wrath of the crowd. Yu Lily couldn't help but laugh. Xiao Ziqing said proudly, "Let's fight again next time. We'll be going back too. Goodbye." Yu Lily quickly followed Xiao Ziqing out of the parking lot. Halfway there, Yu Lily remembered that she had forgotten to take the car keys. She must have left them upstairs. But Xiao Ziqing was already walking further and further away in her high heels. Yu Lily wanted to call out to her, but she couldn't. "What's it called? Auntie? Mom?" Yu Lily quickened her pace to catch up with him and shouted, "That?" However, Xiao Ziqing did not stop and continued walking forward. Yu Lily shouted again, "That? Auntie, I forgot my car keys." The voice was crisp and clear, echoing in the empty parking lot. However, Xiao Ziqing didn't stop walking as if she hadn't heard anything. Yu Lily was sure that her voice wasn't low. How could she not have heard it? Could it be that Oming's mother couldn't recognize his voice? At that thought, Yu Lily felt a little stifled. She chased after him and called out again, "That?" Xiao Ziqing suddenly stopped in her tracks. She turned her head to look at Yu Lily and asked, "Who were you talking to along the way?" Yu Lily was taken aback for a moment before replying, "With you? Follow me? Are you sure?" Xiao Ziqing looked a little angry. Yu Lily was a little confused. She didn't know how she had provoked this female overlord. Xiao Ziqing was annoyed and asked, "What did you call me?" Yu Lily was even more stunned. She whispered tentatively, "Mom, what?" Xiao Ziqing was a little impatient. "Speak louder." His tone was a little fierce, but Yu Lily was suddenly happy. She smiled and said, "The car key is upstairs. I forgot to take it." Xiao Ziqing snorted. "By the time you get it, the sun will be up." As she spoke, she threw a bunch of keys at him. "Let's go." Yu Lily took the key, and it was indeed that key. Xiao Ziqing turned around and walked away. Her back view was straight and beautiful, arrogant and unapproachable. However, Yu Lily's heart suddenly felt like it was about to fly, and she was filled with excitement that couldn't be contained. Looking at Xiao Ziqing's back, Yu Lily shouted happily, "She's coming." Most of the time a person's mood was just because of a small matter. But to Yu Lily this small matter was no small matter. After cooking and eating, Yu Lily helped Nanny Zhang with the laundry and couldn't wait to return to her room. Chapter 1302. Ming was a little confused by her sudden embrace. It was rare to see Yu Lily in such a good mood. Ming's mood improved as well, and his lips curled into a smile. Hugging the little woman in his arms, he asked softly, "What's wrong? Why are you so happy?" When Yu Lily heard the man's voice, she felt so happy that she could fly. She hugged Ming tighter and jumped excitedly. "Ming, let's go buy a lottery ticket. We'll definitely hit the jackpot today." Ming's smile deepened. He loosened his grip and asked, "What's wrong?" Yu Lily's smile was as bright as a flower. It was so gorgeous that no one could take their eyes off her. "Mom brought me to meet her friend today." When Ming heard this, his smile deepened. His pair of bright peach blossom eyes were filled with love, like sugar and honey, so thick that it could not melt. "So fast? How did it feel?" "It was a little awkward at first, but later I played mahjong with a few aunties and helped Mom win many rounds." Yu Lily said it like she was presenting a treasure. Her tone was coquettishly asking for praise, and it was full of pride. Ming could clearly sense that when Yu Lily called Xiao Ziqing, her tone was no longer as repulsive as before. Just this afternoon he was still addressing her as his mother. But now he was directly addressing her as his mother. Such a small change was a good start. Ming rubbed her hair and said with a smile, "Mom is in a good mood today. It's only the first day. It's great." Yu Lily's heart was filled with pride. She hugged Ming's waist and said coquettishly, "It's not even 8 o'clock. Let's go watch a movie, shall we?" "You're in such a good mood?" Ming's smile deepened. He nodded and patted her butt. "All right, let's go." "Yeah." Yu Lily let go of him and entered the room. When Ming saw how happy she was, his smile faded a little. They were newlyweds and Xiao Ziqing had accepted Yu Lily. But if she knew that Yu Lily was likely to be infertile, would she? She was a hidden danger. This matter was like a stone stuck in Ming's heart. He couldn't let it go. He had to find a time to take Yu Lily for a checkup. Yu had been lying in the hospital for several days. As expected, Shen Luo and hadn't appeared since the second day she was hospitalized. There wasn't even a phone call. There is nothing more sorrowful than a dead heart. Yi Qianshan stayed by Yi Yu's side every day. Occasionally she would go out to take a look. However, she spent most of her time in the hospital. Yi Qianshan was sitting next to him, reading a comic. She looked disinterested. Looking at Yi Qianshan's bored expression, Yi Yu felt a little guilty and called out, "Sister." Yi Qianshan suddenly looked up. Her first reaction was to ask, "Huh? Do you want some water?" Yi Yu shook her head. "Go back to work. I'll be discharged in a few days. It's not particularly serious." Yi Qianshan couldn't react for a moment. Before she could think of an answer, she was interrupted by a male voice. Chapter 1303. He turned his head and saw a tall figure standing at the door. Li Jinan looked at the two women inside and slowly walked in. His eyes, as cold as the winter night, landed on Yi Yu. Yi Yu didn't expect him to suddenly appear. When she heard that, she immediately retorted, "I'm not a popular star. They won't be so free to pay attention to my trivial matters." Li Jinan's eyes were calm as he slowly looked away and said, "You're not important, but the Lonely Swordsman is very popular now. The replacement Su Yingying has been very popular lately. You're the original supporting actress and the focus is always on you. If word gets out that you're discriminating against one and favoring the other, how do you think it will affect the company?" "I wanted to be discharged myself. What does it have to do with the company?" Yi Yu looked at Li Jinan with dissatisfaction and said, Although you're my boss, you can't be so overbearing and dictate my affairs, can you? I know my own body best. I want to be discharged. GM Lee, this way I can save you a lot of medical expenses. Li Jinan's eyes turned slightly. His gaze was as calm as the moon and he looked at her coldly. His voice was slow and firm and he didn't allow for any disagreement. The company doesn't lack medical expenses. With that, he turned and walked away. GM Lee. Yu shouted. Li Jinan didn't stop walking. GM Lee, wait a minute. The figure had already left the ward and didn't stay for a moment. Yu was even more annoyed. She screamed, Li Jinan. There was no response. Yu was furious. She stared at the door and bit her lower lip. I think your boss is right. No matter what, you have to get better first. You're already suffering from an injury. If your health isn't good, how are you going to act in the future? How are you going to win back your position? Yi Qianshan said angrily. Yu didn't reply, but the grievance in her heart was magnified. Accident. Injury. It wasn't easy to get the role and she had to give it up just like that. The 2 episodes that had been filmed had to be cut out and replaced with Su Yingying's scenes. The Lonely Swordsman was adapted from a very popular novel. It had a huge readership and the advertising was very strong. She had originally gotten the role of the second female lead because she had a bright personality and a positive image. Many new starlets were fighting over her. There were even quite a few veterans in the circle who wanted this role. She was well aware of the reason why she had fallen into her hands. It was that strange night where she lost her chastity, in exchange for a bright future. If word of this got out, it would be the unspoken rule that everyone talked about. She knew that very well, but what was done was done. There was no point in regretting it. If everything went well, it was very likely that she would officially increase her value and appear in the eyes of the public. But it was ruined, completely ruined. This fall had cut off all her chances. There would only be one such opportunity. Could it be that she had to go to the unspoken rules again in exchange for such an opportunity? Yu pursed her lips. Her eyes were burning. She turned her head away and closed her eyes. In a low voice she said, Sis, I'm hungry. Help me buy some food. Yi Qianshan shut her mouth in embarrassment and said, All right. Give me a moment. Chapter 1304. This man looked very young, very tall, very strong, and very well proportioned and handsome. She was carrying a fruit basket and a bunch of beautiful flowers. At first glance, he was bright and seemed to be about 25 or 26 years old. Who else could it be but Shinjilia? She looked at him in disbelief. Shinjilia? Anyone would be surprised to see Shinjilia in such a place at such a time. Shinjilia saw Yu from afar. He raised his hand in greeting. Hi. Why are you here? I'm here to see my sister-in-law, Shinjilia said with a bright smile. She's in this ward, right? Yes. Yi Qianshan glanced behind him. Shinluo, and didn't come? Speaking of Shinluo, and Shinjilia felt a little guilty. At the end of the day, Shinluo, and was still Yuyu's husband. During this period of time, Shinluo, and had been staying at home to take care of Shin Manting. It was as if Shin Manting was his official wife. Shinjilia coughed lightly and said, My brother has been quite busy recently. He can't leave the hospital, so he didn't come over. Now that I'm free, I'm here on behalf of my brother. Yi Qianshan sneered when she heard that. Come here on behalf of your brother? You don't even take care of your own wife, so you send your younger brother to go through the motions. You're really a competent younger brother. Your older brother must be very happy, right? Shinjilia was rendered speechless. He felt a little aggrieved and said, I don't know either. I'm the younger brother, so I have to listen to whatever he says. I just sent Grandma back to the capital and rushed all the way here. Why are you scolding me? Can't we play properly? Yi Qianshan also knew that she had gone overboard by venting her anger on him. She pouted and reached out to take the fruit basket from his hand. Have you eaten? Not yet, I just got off the plane and came over. You didn't even eat your in-flight meals? Oh please, is in-flight food for humans? Shinjilia felt even more aggrieved. Have you eaten already? No? Go in, I'll go buy some food. Okay, then I want 3 slices of eggplant, mushu pork, and you don't have to be picky. If you don't want to eat, then don't. Yi Qianshan carried the fruit basket into the house and rejected him without any hesitation. She turned around and left the house. Shinjilia chuckled and turned to look at Yu, who was lying on the hospital bed. He called out, Sister-in-law. When Yu heard the way he addressed her, her lips curled into a self-deprecating smile. She looked at the young man in front of her, who looked a little like Shen Luo, and said, "Brother-in-law. Are you feeling better? Recently, I accompanied Grandma on a trip. I just sent Grandma back. It's all right. Thank you for coming to see me." Yi Yu smiled, but the smile looked forced no matter how you looked at it. Shen Julia's heart ached when he saw Yi Yu's pale and listless face. Shen Julia walked over and sat down on the stool beside her bed. He sighed and said, "Sister-in-law, I'm sorry." The sudden apology made Yi Yu turn her head away. She didn't understand what was going on. "Our Shen family owes you too much. Sister-in-law, I'm sorry." Yi Yu's eyes dimmed, and her smile faded. "Recently, my brother has been quite busy, so he didn't have time to visit you. However, he specifically told me to see how you're doing, and when he's done with his work, he'll come visit you." Chapter 1305. Shen Julia nodded his head. "Yes." Shen Luo An's exact words were, "Check if she's dead for me." The last sentence was added by himself. But seeing that Yi Yu's mood had obviously improved, it was worth it. So, no matter what, health is the top priority. You must take good care of yourself. When my brother is done with his work, you have to look better. Look at your face. TSK. It's like you've applied a layer of powder. It's pale and green. You look so haggard. Shen Julia looked at her face and shook his head. "You look much uglier than before." Yi Yu instinctively touched her face. She finally felt a sense of crisis. "Really? Why don't you take a look for yourself?" Shen Julia took out his phone and turned on the front camera. He aimed it at her face and asked, "Is that right?" Yi Yu looked at herself in the mirror. The first thing she saw were the dark circles under her eyes, the bags under her eyes, the pale complexion, and the messy hair. During this period of time, she hadn't taken care of herself properly. Firstly, she wasn't in the mood. Secondly, it wasn't convenient. Yi Yu had never imagined that things would turn out this way. As she touched her face, Yi Yu's emotions became complicated. A week ago it was still bright and beautiful. Now, in just a few days it had become like this. How tragic. Yi Yu felt a little stifled. She handed the phone back without a word. With one look, Shen Julia could tell that she had taken his advice to heart. He quickly changed the topic and told her a lot of interesting things. However, Yi Yu had always been disinterested. When Yi Chanshan returned from buying food, she could feel the awkwardness in the air. Yi Chanshan had bought a lot of food because of the extra man. There was a lot of meat and seafood on the table. As soon as they were placed on the table, Shen Julia cheered them on. He opened the lunch boxes and began to eat heartily. Yi Chanshan unceremoniously smacked him with her chopsticks. "Have you washed your hands? Besides, this is for my sister. How dare you snatch food from a patient?" Shen Julia shrank back from the slap. He quickly replied, "I've showered. I'll peel the prawns for you, don't move." "I don't believe you. You must be trying to steal it. Am I that kind of person?" "Yes. You misunderstood." He. Shen Julia was speechless. The exchange of words was boring, but Yi Yu found it interesting. After the meal, Yi Yu's mood improved significantly. By the time she sent Shen Julia off, it was already past 9 in the evening. Yi Yu fell into a deep sleep. Yi Chanshan led Shen Julia to the hotel where she was staying to get a room. After that, they went their separate ways. After Shen Julia finished his shower, he couldn't calm down for a long time. After much consideration, she decided to call Shen Luo on. The call was quickly connected. It seemed to be a little noisy on Shen Luo An's side. There was the sound of moving music, lively chatter, and the coquettish voice of a woman. When Shen Julia heard the noise, he could roughly guess where that place was. After a moment of silence, she called out, "Brother?" However, it wasn't Shen Luo An's voice that appeared. It was Shin Manting. "Julia, brother is drunk. I'm in the bar. Can you come and help me? I can't carry him alone." Shen Julia frowned. "I'm in H City. Are you going to have a drink with him?" "No, I was told to come here by the waiter. I didn't dare to tell my parents, so I came here secretly." Chapter 1306. Shin Manting was also helpless. She looked at Shen Luo An, who was as drunk as a dead fish. "Julia, see if there is a waiter nearby. Ask the waiter to help you." Shen Julia's voice was calm, but Shin Manting was even more flustered at this moment. She said, "Julia, I'm a little scared. What if I'm recognized?" Hearing this, Shin Julia had a strange feeling in his heart. She's actually afraid of being recognized? What's there to be recognized? Is she afraid of being recognized as Shin Manting? Or was it that she was afraid of being recognized as the female lead of the rumor that had been spreading recently? Or is she afraid of being recognized as the heroine of the scandal? Recently, because of Yi Yuyu's injury, Shin Manting and Shin Luo, Anne's relationship was also dug up and talked about. It was a hot topic on Weibo. Some people said that Yi Yuyu made a mistake during the filming because her husband cheated on his sister-in-law. This Weibo was very popular. Many people were scolding Shin Manting and many people said, "You'd better not let me see you or you won't be able to return." Shin Manting was probably afraid of this. After thinking about it, Shin Jilia comforted her, "Don't be afraid. Those keyboard warriors are nothing without their keyboards. Cover your face and ask someone to help send me back." But Grandma is at home. If she finds out that we are drunk, I'm afraid. Shin Manting was also in trouble in the Shin family recently. Old Mrs. Shin's attitude toward her was getting colder and colder. She even scolded her recently. Shin Manting was suffering in her heart. She just needed to stay away from old Mrs. Shin. But if she took Shin Luo and home like this, old Mrs. Shin could not know, and there would be a great disaster. "Take me to the hotel first. Let's hide for the night." This was the only way. Shin Manting thought so too. She looked around and saw that there were many men and women coming and going. There were not many people paying attention to this side. Shin Manting tried to lift Shin Luo, and then whispered, "Brother, wake up. It's time to go home." Shin Luo, and didn't move, but in a drunken state, he reached out and put his hand on her. He should be able to hear her. Shin Manting exhaled softly and pulled up her turtleneck sweater to cover most of her face. She squatted down, lifted his arm and wrapped it around her neck. She used all her strength to pull him to his feet. Shin Luo, and looked drunk, but he was still conscious. He reached out to hold her shoulders and rested his head on her neck. His breaths were filled with the strong smell of alcohol. His mouth was mumbling something, but it was hard to hear what he was saying. Shin Manting held him in her arms and dragged him away. She whispered, "Can you still walk? Be careful. Don't crush me. You're too heavy." Shin Luo, and lifted his body slightly, and his footsteps followed Shin Manting's. Although it wasn't very stable, it was still much easier than before. Shin Manting kept her head down throughout the journey. Shin Manting hailed a cab and carried him in after they found a hotel. When Shin Luo, and entered the room, he seemed to have sobered up. He muttered, "Take a shower." Shin Manting was infuriated by him and threw him onto the bed. She took off her coat and scolded him, "You're drunk and you still want to take a bath? Don't die in the bathroom." Chapter 1307. Suddenly Shin Luo, and laughed and waved at her. He said gently, "Come here." Shin Manting was a little afraid to go over, but when she saw his smile, she still walked over. Shin Luo, and was a little annoyed. He simply reached out and pulled her over, holding her in his arms. Shin Manting subconsciously resisted. She struggled to break free from his restraint with both hands and shouted, "Shin Luo an, please be more respectful." Hearing that, Shin Luo, and seemed to loosen his grip, and his breathing suddenly became a little rapid. Shin Luo, and fell back softly. He squinted his eyes and fell on the bed, smiling bitterly. However, he did not let go of Shin Manting's hand. He gently pulled and said again, "Come here." Shin Manting had never seen Shin Luo, and like this. Desolate and lonely, as if he was fragile and vulnerable. This Shin Luo, and was completely different from the Shin Luo, and who was usually superior and insufferably arrogant. Shin Manting felt a little sympathy from the bottom of her heart. The feeling of disgust she should have felt at this moment seemed to be defeated by his loneliness and fragility, and completely disappeared without a trace. Shin Manting stepped forward and gently held his hand. She leaned over and touched his face. His handsome face had been burned red by the alcohol, and it was very hot. Shin Manting looked at the man in front of her and gently lay down beside him. Her beautiful eyes stared at him. This was her first man and also her elder brother. Originally there should be nothing between him and her. He was already married and he had a childhood sweetheart. She was supposed to be married to another man, but everything changed. From the beginning of his invasion, from the day she committed suicide, her life and his life began to be different. Shin Luo, and seemed to feel a warmth approaching in front of him. He leaned forward and opened his squinted eyes. He turned his body and easily pressed his body against hers. Shin Manting was caught off guard and screamed. Looking at the flushed face in front of her, her heart could not help but beat faster. Indescribable throbbing spread layer by layer. Shin Luo, and held her palm with one hand and rested his other hand on the side of her body. He lowered his head slightly and kissed her lips softly and tenderly. There was an indescribable electric current flowing through her smooth and tender lips that reeked of alcohol. Shen Manting couldn't tell what she was feeling, but it was a little uncomfortable and comfortable at the same time. She was so happy that she was infatuated with it. This was something she had never experienced when facing O Ming. This was something she had never experienced in front of Shenluo An. Shenluo An closed his eyes and kissed her gently. His lips moved down slowly and his Adam's apple bobbed as he whispered a name, "You?" Shen Manting felt as if something in her heart had shattered in an instant. She was caught off guard by the sound of a clang. The feeling of weightlessness in his heart was so empty that it almost suffocated him. Her lips, which reeked of alcohol, continued to move, but she was no longer as intoxicated as before. An indescribable discomfort instantly filled his heart. She raised her hand and pushed him away forcefully. A warm current overflowed from the bottom of her heart to her eyes. Even Shen Manting herself couldn't tell why, and her throat was choked with unbearable pain. Shenluo An was pushed so suddenly that he opened his eyes blankly and looked around. In a daze, he seemed to see a figure holding a bundle of clothes and walking away. Then there was a sound. Chapter 1308. After watching a movie with O Ming, they went to have supper. By the time they got home, it was already past 11 p.m. The two of them tiptoed back home, afraid that they would wake up O Huijin and his wife. But when he got home, he found that he didn't have his keys with him. Of course, it was impossible for Yu Lily to have a key. For a moment, the two of them couldn't go in, and they didn't dare to ring the doorbell to wake them up. What should we do? Yu Lily looked at him and felt a little aggrieved. Today is only the first day. What if your mother has a problem with me again and says that I brought you everywhere? O Ming laughed and pinched her nose. How did it become my mother again? My mother is your mother. I won't be so petty. Besides, we just got married. Isn't it normal for newlyweds to go out on a date? Is it normal? Yu Lily thought about it and felt that it was not appropriate. This was the first time Yu Lily had stayed here. She had been running around on the first day. Yu Lily regretted it and said, "If I had known, I wouldn't have gone out. Why didn't you stop me just now?" Hearing this blame, O Ming didn't know whether to laugh or cry. Are you blaming me? It's your fault. It's all your fault. It's all your fault. Yu Lily pushed him away and looked at the closed door with a bitter face. What should we do? How about we go home? Shoo. Listen. O Ming pointed at the door. Sure enough, light footsteps could be heard from inside. Then the door opened from the inside. O Huijin was in his pajamas. He looked at the couple who had returned home late at night and sighed helplessly. Don't come back so late next time. Your mother is still waiting for you. Yu Lily regretted it even more. She shrank her neck and did not dare to speak. He pulled his wife aside and replied, Got it? It won't be so late next time. Let Mom go to bed first. Do you still need to sleep tonight? Qiao Ziqing walked out and looked at the big clock in the living room. She said in a bad mood, It'll take a long time to shower later. Go straight to sleep after you go in. Don't mess around. Get up early tomorrow, you hear? Don't mess around. These words, Yu Lily's face suddenly turned red. He lifted his head to look at Qiao Ziqing and realized that she was looking at him. It was obvious that these words were directed at him. Yu Lily's face became redder and she nodded. Got it. Qiao Ziqing also knew that girls were shy. Seeing her like this, she waved her hand and said, Go to sleep. Although let's go back too. Yes, I'm coming, O Huijin replied. He closed the door and walked inside. O Ming looked at Qiao Ziqing's back and teased, You guys are not allowed to mess around. Hearing this, Qiao Ziqing nearly choked on her saliva. Her face turned red as she coughed. O Huijin was even more direct. He walked over to O Ming and knocked him on the head. He warned, Are you tired of living? O Ming clutched his head and scrunched up his face. Yu Lily wanted to laugh but didn't dare. She pursed her lips and blushed. Her shoulders trembled slightly as she pulled O Ming inside. However, she clearly underestimated O Ming's recklessness. Just as they were about to enter the hallway, O Ming turned his head and seriously advised, Staying up late is not good for your health. Come earlier tomorrow. O Huijin was even more annoyed. He raised his hand in their direction. Chapter 1309. The next morning Yu Lily woke up early. It was 6 in the morning. She had just changed into her sportswear when she heard a knock on the door. Qiao Ziqing had already put on her casual and beautiful sportswear. She looked healthy and energetic. When Yu Lily saw Qiao Ziqing in this state, she sighed in her heart. Fortunately, she had this habit. Otherwise, it would have been awkward. "Good morning, Mom." Yu Lily smiled naturally. There was no awkwardness in her greeting. When Qiao Ziqing heard that, she looked at her and replied, "Hurry up. We have to come back later to make breakfast. Auntie Zhang is off today, so I'm counting on you to make all 3 meals." Yu Lily's smile widened. Not only was there no resentment in her heart, but joy welled up from the bottom of her heart. She nodded her head and said, "All right." Seeing that she was willing to work without complaint and happy made Qiao Ziqing feel much better. But she didn't show it on her face. She turned and ran saying, "Let's go." "Okay." Yu Lily followed closely behind. Her pace was neither fast nor slow. She kept up with Qiao Ziqing. The villa was located in the suburbs of Kingstown. Most of the people who lived there were the parents of older, wealthier people. Along the way, Qiao Ziqing met many familiar faces and greeted them. Many people's eyes fell on Yu Lily. Anyone who saw her would ask, "Who is that?" Qiao Ziqing would always smile and say, "My Xiao's wife." She didn't say that she was her daughter-in-law, but the neighbors who came and went already knew who Yu Lily was. After running for half an hour, Yu Lily washed her hands and started to make breakfast when she came back. Fortunately, Yu Lily had learned to be self-reliant from a young age. She had a knack for cooking. In about half an hour, breakfast for 4 was ready. When she returned to the room, Ming wasn't in bed. The blankets on the bed were in a mess. It looked like he had just woken up. Yu Lily went forward to touch him. The blankets were still warm. She folded the blankets. Just as she put them down, she heard a slight movement behind her. She could tell that the person behind her had deliberately lightened her footsteps. Yu Lily's lips curled up. She suddenly turned around and shouted, "Hey!" Ming originally wanted to scare her, but when she suddenly turned around, he was frightened by her. Yu Lily saw that Ming was obviously frightened and laughed out loud. She pointed at him and laughed mercilessly. "Are you trying to scare me?" Ming gritted his teeth and pushed her onto the bed. He reached out and touched her waist fiercely. With a fierce look, he said, "You dare to laugh at me?" Yu Lily was ticklish, so she felt uncomfortable being scratched by him. She laughed out loud, but at the same time she couldn't take it anymore. She grabbed his hand and begged, "No, no, who are you talking to? With you, ah ha ha, stop scratching me. I can't take it anymore. Who am I?" "What should you call me? If you're right, then I won't catch you." Ming's tone contained a hint of a smile, but at the same time, there was a strong sense of threat. Yu Lily understood as soon as she heard that. She curled up and clutched her stomach. She grabbed his hand and begged, "Honey, honey, don't." Chapter 13:10. They fought a bloody battle. These words, Yu Lily pried his hand away and whispered behind his back, "Be careful not to get sick." Ming had a look of surprise on his face. He turned his head to look at Yu Lily and asked in astonishment, "So, you can still get sick like this? I've never heard of it." Yu Lily pushed him. "Now that you've heard, let's go." Ming nodded. He frowned and said seriously, "I heard about it, but I don't believe it. Come on, let's try it." As he spoke, he pushed Yu Lily inside. Yu Lily glared at him and pushed him away forcefully. "Get lost. Mom and Dad are going to look for you later." Ming looked regretful. "Then let's try again tonight." "Try your head." "Ah." By the time Yu Lily and Ming came out, Qiao Ziqing was already halfway through her meal. Huajin was reading the newspaper. In his spare time, he raised his head and looked at them. In a low voice, he said, "Time for breakfast. Lily's breakfast is pretty good. Of course, I've been eating her cooking all the time." Ming pulled Yu Lily over to sit down without any hesitation. Wiping his hands with a wet towel, Ming took a bite of his breakfast and ate it with relish. Yu Lily felt a little embarrassed and said, "Thank you, Dad." Huajin put down the newspaper and looked at Yu Lily. "When are you planning to hold the wedding? Seriously, why didn't you tell your family about such a big thing like getting married? How can this girl only have one marriage certificate?" Huajin's words made Yu Lily feel guilty. Qiao Ziqing raised her head and snorted, "Why do you care so much about them? They can do whatever they want." "Soon, I'm already preparing," Ming replied as he ate. Yu Lily heard his words and looked at him in surprise. Ming was already preparing for his wedding? When did that happen? Why didn't she know anything about it? Ming acted as if he hadn't noticed Yu Lily's gaze and continued, "As for the guest list, we'll need you and me to help us check it out. When the time comes, we'll need you and me to decide who to invite. You know more than we do, don't you, Mom? Qiao Ziqing enjoyed his flattery very much. Qiao Ziqing glanced at her son and harumphed. Now you remember your parents. When you went to Fujian to please your wife, you didn't even think about us. Yu Lily was even more embarrassed. As the person involved, it was a little embarrassing to be called out like that. With a look of disapproval, he said, Mom, what you said is wrong. What are we? We're family. We've known each other for more than 30 years. Or we. But if you don't get your wife back, how are you going to have grandchildren in the future? Without grandchildren, what will you do in the future? I'm doing this for the sake of your old age. Yu Lily almost slapped him. Did you want a child just to fool your parents? Oh, Huijin was speechless. Qiao Ziqing glared at him and said, What a glib tongue. Oh Ming reached under the table and gently placed his hand on Yu Lily's. He said proudly, If you don't have a glib tongue, how can you coax your wife? As he spoke, he raised his eyebrows and looked at Yu Lily with a bright smile. Chapter 13:11. Oh Ming put his hand on hers again, but it was quickly pushed away by Yu Lily. He put his hand on hers again and it was pushed away again and again. The two of them had fun. Qiao Ziqing was a little bored. She shook her head and said, You two are so dramatic. Yu Lily couldn't help but laugh. She turned her head and found that Oh Ming was also smiling. That was great. Everything was as happy as she had imagined. That was great. A month was enough to change a lot of things. It was said that it took 100 days to recover from an injury. Yu finally got discharged on the 30th day of lying in the hospital. During those 30 days, Shen Luo and didn't come, but Shinjilia came very frequently. After Yiyu's mother got divorced, she married a rich businessman in the capital. Yiyu had grown up in the capital. After making money, she bought a house in the suburbs of the capital. She said she was going home to recuperate, which meant she was going back to the capital. Yi Qianqian had to go to work, so she had already returned to Kingstown. On that day, Shinjilia sent Yiyu back to the capital. When he saw the car of the Shin family's driver, he naturally pulled Yiyu's luggage toward the car. When Yiyu saw that, she immediately took the luggage from his hand. Shinjilia turned his head in surprise and asked, What's wrong, sister-in-law? Sister-in-law, being in the capital, stepping on the land under her feet, Yiyu felt it was very ironic when she heard that title. You can go back by yourself. I can go back by myself. Yiyu's smile was light, but it was obvious that she was estranged. Yiyu had been like that for a long time. Shinjilia was more or less used to it, but at this moment when he heard Yiyu's words, he still felt a little distressed. Looking at the girl in front of him who was a little younger than him, he comforted her and said, Sister-in-law, let's go home together. After all, you are my sister-in-law and the Shin family is your home. Yiyu heard that and shook her head. Thank you, uncle. It's been hard on you these days, but I still need some time to prepare. Prepare? Shinjilia had already guessed something. Prepare for what? I asked for this marriage. I am very grateful to Shin Luo. He made my dream come true. He had also personally extinguished all her hopes and all her light. I will divorce him. I hope we can still be friends in the future. Yiyu's smile was light, but when combined with her pale complexion, it was like a blooming epiphyllum in the night. It was beautiful, but it could dissipate at any moment. Shinjilia could clearly feel an indescribable pain in his heart. He looked at her and opened his mouth, but in the end, not a single word came out. Yiyu picked up her luggage, turned around, and headed for the taxi lane. Shinjilia stared at her from behind. He couldn't help but take a big step forward and block her way. He said, Let me take you back. It's not easy to hail a cab at this hour and I happen to be starving. Let's have dinner together and then I'll take you back. When Yiyu heard that, she saw the pure and sincere expression on his face. She nodded her head and said, Thank you. Hey, why are you thanking me? You get in the car. When Yiyu heard her name coming from Shinjilia's mouth, she was stunned for a moment. You're tuning in to the Han Li's Wuxia Chronicles YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.